Hey guys, tonight we slip back tens of thousands of years to a time before alarm clocks, before running water, before oat milk lattes or electric blankets. You're nestled in a dark, damp cave somewhere on the edge of a dense forest, surrounded by the muffled sounds of snoring, dripping stalactites, and maybe, just maybe, a low growl that might be your friend or not. The walls around you are damp with dew. The floor is packed earth and scattered bones, and your bed is a questionable pile of fur that still smells a little too mammoth-y for comfort. This is your morning now. Welcome to the Paleolithic. You wake up not to birdsong or sunrise, but to the urgent cold poking through your furs and the sharp reminder that the fire's gone out again. You reach for a stick from last night's embers. Cold. No glow. You sigh. Quietly, because someone in the corner has a temper when they're tired, and you sit up, bones creaking from another night on hard rock. This world is old, raw, and endlessly uncertain. There are no maps, no weather reports, no grocery stores. If you're hungry, you have to hunt or forage. If you're sick, you have to hope the healer remembers which root doesn't kill you. If you're cold, well, you usually are. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where in the world you're listening from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You wake up every day not knowing if it's your last. You probably won't survive this, let's be honest, but there's a certain charm to the simplicity of it all. No emails, no bosses, no traffic. Just you, your tribe, and the 1,000 tiny battles that make up a day in the Stone Age. You stretch your arms, cracking your back against the cave wall. Across from you, someone's already up. Old Elta, who never seems to sleep and always smells faintly of bear fat. She's poking at a bundle of twigs, coaxing flame from nothing. You shuffle over, your bare feet pressing into soft ash and smooth stones. There's frost in the air, and every breath curls like a ghost. Elta grunts, points to the fire. You grab the hide sack of dried grass and feed it in slowly. One spark catches, and just like that, the little flames hiss and whisper to life. You cup your hands around it, basking in a warmth that feels like pure treasure. No one talks much in the morning. It's all nods and grunts. You check your surroundings. Your stash of flint tools is still tucked behind that jagged rock. Your fur cloak hasn't been stolen, and your favorite club, yes, it has a favorite, is right where you left it. A solid start. You head outside. The sun is creeping up beyond the trees, turning the mist into golden threads. Birds will overhead, but you're not fooled. They're scouts for bigger things. You sniff the air, noting the wind direction like you actually know what it means. It smells of earth, wet leaves, and distant danger. Your body is always sore. Knees, shoulders, neck, all perpetually on the edge of ache. That's the thing about being a caveman. There's no off switch. Your body is your survival tool, and it's constantly being used. You squat, stretch, spit, scratch. That's your version of a wellness routine. Water's next. There's a stream not far off, but it's icy and smells faintly of whatever died upstream last week. You kneel, cup your hands, and take a few sips. It tastes like rocks and old leaves. Still, it's water, and you'll take it over dying of dehydration. Historians still argue whether early humans deliberately boiled their water or just let their stomachs sort it out. Jury's out, and so is your digestion. Nearby, you see two kids thwacking each other with sticks. They're learning how not to die in the funniest way possible. One's got a scrape on his nose, the other is chewing something unidentifiable. You watch, amused. You were like that once, before you knew what real danger was. Breakfast? If you're lucky, there's leftover hare meat or half a handful of nuts someone forgot to hoard. But more often than not, mornings mean empty stomachs. Hunger is your shadow, always there, always waiting. You chew on a bit of bark, not because it tastes good, it doesn't, but because it gives your jaw something to do while your brain calculates risk versus reward. Hunt now, or wait for a bigger party. Someone from your group stumbles out next. You call him Burrow because he borrows everything: your knife, your furs, your patience. He grunts a greeting, then pees right outside the cave mouth, aiming at some poor lichen that never saw it coming. As more of the group rouses, the dynamic shifts. The ones with plans start murmuring. The strong ones gather their gear. The elders watch everything with narrow eyes. And you're in the middle. Not a leader, not a straggler. Just trying to make it to nightfall. There's something oddly beautiful about these mornings. No buzzing lights. No digital screens. Just the sky, wide and shifting. The calls of unseen animals echo across the trees. You hear the distant crack of a branch. Could be a deer. Could be something with bigger teeth. One of the women begins to sing softly, humming a tune that's older than language. It's not for you. Not really. It's for the spirits, the ancestors, the winds. Or maybe just to soothe herself. Hard to say. A quirky archaeological theory once suggested that singing helped tribes time their walking pace or coordinate work, kind of like a prehistoric Spotify playlist. And still, the day hasn't really begun. This is just warm-up. You've warmed your hands, splashed your face, maybe even found a beetle to crunch for a snack. The real action starts soon. When the hunters head out, when the forest starts whispering secrets, when the line between survival and disaster becomes razor thin. You find your pack, your worn leather bag made of stitched intestines and fur scraps, and check its contents. A few flints, a bit of sinew, and the broken tooth of a saber cat you once saw die. A charm, maybe, but just a reminder that you lived through something most wouldn't. Someone starts dancing. Not the fun kind, more like a frantic stomp. The tribe's way of psyching themselves up. You join, swinging your arms, feeling your muscles wake up. There's no caffeine here, but adrenaline does the trick. That, and the unspoken understanding, today might be hard. It might be brutal, but it's yours to face. A final glance at the cave. A few of the elderly stay behind, wrapped in furs, eyes distant. Maybe remembering a time when they were the ones stomping mud and howling war songs. You nod to them, respectfully. They are your memory keepers, your wisdom keepers, your slightly terrifying ghost storytellers. Then you step into the wild. The forest yawns before you, endless and shadowed. Each crack of a branch could be a meal, or the end. Your fingers tighten on your spear. Your ears scan for movement. You are awake, fully, deeply alive. And despite the danger, or maybe because of it, there's a strange peace to it all. This is the beginning of a caveman day. Cold, raw, unfiltered. A dance with nature, a battle with chance, and 1,000 tiny miracles just to stay alive. Now that your body's warm and your breath no longer puffs out like smoke from a dragon's nostrils, you start easing into what counts as your morning routine. It's not glamorous. There's no skin serum or meditation playlist, but it's got its own rhythm, shaped by instincts older than written memory. You squat by the stream to clean your hands. Well, wipe your hands in the icy water and hope that whatever's under your nails isn't poisonous. Splash a little on your face. It stings your cheeks, wakes you up faster than any espresso shot ever could. You sniff your underarms and shrug. You're not trying to impress anyone today, unless that one forger with a cute limp comes by again. Back at the cave entrance, you dig through your belongings. A fur that used to be raccoon, probably. A chipped bowl made from a large turtle shell, and a precious shard of obsidian that still catches light like it's got secrets. You tuck it all into your carrying net, braided grass and sinew durable, if a bit itchy. And then, the most important part of the morning, the body check. You twist your wrist. No sprain. Knees are stiff, but functional. Your shoulder, the one that got smashed by a rockfall last season, still grinds when you lift your arm. You wince, rub it. It's fine. It's all fine. You flex your fingers. Hands are your currency, your tools, your lifeline. Losing a toe might slow you down. Losing a hand, you might as well start choosing a scenic burial spot. Someone next to you sneezes, a wet and dramatic affair. You flinch instinctively. Disease exists here, Oh yes. And while we might look at it now as just a cold, back then, it's a potential death sentence with a side of contagious doom. Historians still argue whether Neanderthals practiced any form of quarantine or medical care when someone fell ill. Maybe they shared herbs. Maybe they just moved their sleeping mats 6 feet away and hoped for the best. You hear your name, or what passes for your name. A grunt with a twist of vowel. It means you with the good throwing arm. You turn. Burrow is waving you over, holding a bundle of dried moss. He's doing that thing again, offering trade. You raise an eyebrow. What's the catch? Turns out, he wants to borrow your flint scraper again. Classic Burrow. You reluctantly hand it over. The moss is good stuff. Absorbent, clean-smelling, probably recently harvested. You tuck it into your belt. You'll need it if the meat tonight gives you stomach trouble. Prehistoric toilet paper. You muse. Nature's Charmin. As the group starts assembling, everyone begins gearing up. It's a ritual in itself. You sling your tool belt across your chest. A braided strap holding your favorite scraper, a small pouch of dry grubs, don't judge, and a carved wooden charm shaped like a bird. It doesn't do anything, but it belonged to your mother, and it feels right having it near. Next to you, someone sharpens a spear point using the slow, rhythmic stroke of flint on stone. The sound is almost soothing, like nature's metronome. You glance at your own spear, wooden shaft, fire-hardened tip, not as fancy as the obsidian-tipped ones the elders carry, but it's served you well. You adjust your grip, roll your shoulders, and scan the morning fog. You're not hunting today. Not yet. Today, you're doing the small rounds. Foraging, checking traps, maybe gathering firewood if you're feeling generous. It's low stakes, relatively speaking. You nod to the old woman who keeps track of who goes where. She squints at you, then jerks her chin toward the western slope. Great. The boggy side. You set off with a few others, feet sloshing through damp underbrush. The path is faint, but you know the markers, broken branches, a pile of rocks that kind of looks like a turtle if you squint, and that one tree with a hole shaped like a surprised face. As you walk, you absent-mindedly swat at the occasional gnat. The bugs here are relentless. You'd think the cold mornings would slow them down. They laugh at your suffering. You smear a bit of crushed mint leaf on your neck. It helps. A little. It's not exactly deep, but it's something. At the stream bend, you pause. There's a patch of something green. Edible? Maybe. You bend down and inspect the leaves. You've seen these before. Tart, astringent, safe. You pick a few and chew one. Your mouth puckers. Yep, still astringent. This is the part of the day where you think the most. No battles. No beasts. Just your thoughts wandering like shadows across the forest floor. You wonder how long the warm weather will last. If the elders know something you don't. If there's another group camped somewhere nearby, watching you from the trees. The stillness is broken when one of your companions calls out. They found a trap, and it worked. Inside is a rabbit, neck broken, eyes glassy. Dinner, or part of it, anyway. You lift it out carefully. The trap is simple. A bent sapling, some rope, and a little luck. But did the job. You whisper a quick thanks to the forest. It's not required, but it feels wrong not to. Some people in your group think everything has a spirit. The tree, the rabbit, the trap. Others just do it because their grandmothers did. Religion, if it exists here, is foggy and personal. On the way back, you gather a few mushrooms, carefully checking the markings. Some are safe, some are lethal, and a few are special, hallucinogenic, according to the elders, used in ceremonies, or on dares. You pocket one just in case. By the time you get back to the cave, the sun's higher, and the air has lost its edge. You drop the rabbit by the fire, hand over the mushrooms, and pass the greens to a woman squatting with a stone mortar. She grunts approval. You're contributing. You won't be sleeping outside tonight. Someone offers you a drink, fermented fruit water. It's tangy, weirdly fizzy, and definitely got left too long in the sun, but it dulls the tension in your shoulders. You sit for a moment, lean against a warm rock, and breathe. The morning's half over. You've foraged, traded, dodged bugs, and managed not to step in anything too disgusting. You watch as the kids now play some strange game involving a stick, a hollowed log, and a lot of shouting. One bonks the other on the head. Laughter. Crying. Probably both. And then you hear a call from the tree line. The hunting party is back early. You stand, curiosity prickling at your spine. They're dragging something large, heavy, wrapped in vines and blood. It's not dinner. It's a person. One of your own. Limp. Unconscious. Breathing? Maybe. Maybe not. The morning, once quiet, turns fast. People run. Hands wave. You push through to see who it is. It's your friend. The one who made you laugh when you broke your toe last spring. The one who carved that weird little animal bone whistle and insisted it sounded like a bear. There's a gash along his side, deep and ugly. Blood soaks his fur. Someone screams for Elta. She comes, plants her knees beside the fallen figure, and starts working. Her hands move like she's done this before. She probably has. Too many times. You watch, helpless. Someone grabs your shoulder, pulls you back. Don't crowd, their eyes say. You sit, eyes wide, heart pounding. This is the other part of the morning routine. The reminder, even when you're just foraging, even when you're doing the safe stuff, death walks close, always close. Sometimes it just waits. Sometimes it pounces. Eventually, Elta leans back. The bleeding stopped. For now. She says nothing, just gestures for more moss. You hand over the bundle Burrow gave you earlier. A small gift that might help save a life. You lie back, head against stone. The sky above the cave mouth is pale blue. Birds dance across it like they have no idea what fear is. You envy them for a moment. Then you close your eyes, exhale slow. Morning's over. By the time the sun is directly overhead. Well, as overhead as it ever gets through the haze and the forest canopy. You've already eaten, rested, and try not to stare at the injured hunter still breathing shallow in the shade. He hasn't moved much, but that twitch in his hand earlier gave you hope. You tell yourself you saw it, even if no one else did. Your own body reminds you it's time to move again. Muscles tighten, then ache, then threaten to stiffen if you keep lounging on this rock like a sunbathing lizard. You rise with a grunt, brushing off dirt, leaves, and something you really hope is just old pine sap. It's the middle of the day, peak productivity time in the life of a prehistoric you. No emails to return, no office gossip, no lunchtime YouTube rabbit holes. Just one main goal, stay useful. In a world without written laws. Usefulness is the closest thing to social currency. You decided to check on the tool stash today. It's your personal cache, hidden a good 5 minutes hike from the cave under a rock shaped like an angry turtle. You only showed one person where it was, your younger cousin, who probably told 3 others by now. But that's fine. If someone takes something, they'd better leave something else behind. That's the unspoken rule. As you walk, birdsong trails above you like a sleepy soundtrack. Your footsteps are soft in the underbrush. You're careful, practiced. You've learned to walk without scaring off animals or alerting predators. 2 categories that often overlap. You pass an old tree marked with claw grooves high above your head. Not human-made. Too high, too wide. Bear. Maybe even cave lion. The fact that it's old doesn't comfort you. You pick up a sturdy stick as you keep walking. At the stash site, you drop to your knees and lift the turtle rock with effort. Inside, a bow and all, 3 good flakes of quartzite, a broken hand axe you keep meaning to fix, and yes, a small hunk of deer sinew, dried and stiff. Still usable. You grin. That sinew is like duct tape in this world. You tuck it into your pouch. You spend the next hour reworking the broken hand axe. With a few sharp taps of stone on stone, you reshape the edge. It's crude, but sharp enough to cut hide or scrape bark. You test on a stick and nod to yourself. Not bad. Not great either, but it'll do the job. Besides, tool making is almost meditative. There's a rhythm to it, a quiet satisfaction when a flake chips away just right and leave a razor-sharp edge. You think back to the old stories about the ancestors, whoever they were. Some elders claim they came from across the water. Others say they walked out of the mountains, taller than trees and glowing like fire. Historians still argue whether early humans had oral myths this developed, or if we're projecting our love for folklore onto their fragmented bones and soot-stained cave walls. But stories exist. You've heard them. About the time the moon disappeared. About the giant bird who swallowed the sun. About the trickster who invented laughter and mud at the same time. You hum one of the old chants as you work. The melody, so simple, almost vanishes into the wind. Suddenly, a movement to your left. Your hand tightens on the axe. It's just a squirrel darting from one tree to another like it's late for something. You exhale and let your shoulders relax. One of these days, your nerves are going to give out before your bones do. On the way back to camp, you detour to collect birch bark. It peels in long, thin sheets, papery and light. Good for wrapping meat, starting fires, or even sketching with charcoal. Though no one would call those sketches art, unless they were being really generous. You've seen the cave drawings on the northern cliffs, though. Deer with lines like rivers, human shapes with hands outstretched, as if reaching for something lost. Maybe that's what you all are doing out here, reaching. When you return, the camp is humming again. People are chipping, weaving, scraping, repairing. Midday chores in full swing. You find a spot by the fire pit and sit cross-legged, laying out your birch bark and sinew. A young boy watches you with wide eyes. You smile and show him how to bind two sticks together with the sinew. He mimics you, tongue poking out in concentration. You don't tell him he's using the wrong end. He'll figure it out. Nearby, a group is weaving baskets from reeds. Their fingers fly fast, practiced. One of them, an older woman with arms like rope, is muttering to herself about the shape of the weave. Too loose, and the berries fall out. Too tight, and the basket splits. Balance in everything. It's not just a chore. It's craftsmanship, one refined over generations of trial, error, and splinters. A man walks by with a large, curved rib bone. He's scraping it smooth with a flint flake. Eventually, it'll become a shovel of sorts, a tool for digging up roots or unearthing burrowing animals. It looks elegant in its own gnarly way, polished from hours of labor and layered with tiny nicks from previous uses. You wonder how long it'll last before it splinters. The smell of roasting meat floats through camp. Someone caught a lizard the size of your forearm. Juicy, fatty, slightly pungent. You accept a piece when it's passed your way, biting in carefully. It's hot, slightly chewy, and surprisingly satisfying. You wash it down with a few sips of that fermented drink again. Still weirdly fizzy. Still growing on you. Once you're done eating, it's time for hide work. Not glamorous, but necessary. You head over to the drying rack, where several animal skins are stretched out, stiff and half cleaned. You grab a scraper and get to work scraping the fat and connective tissue from the inside of a hide. The sound is unique. A wet, rhythmic squelch that no one would ever put in a sleep playlist. But your hands know the motion. Pull, scrape, shift. You get into a groove. The hide begins to soften, to yield. It's tedious, yes, but also calming, especially when paired with the occasional sarcastic comment tossed between workers. Scraping hides again, someone calls. Didn't you promise you'd invent a better way? You don't even look up. I did. This is the better way. The old one involved teeth. They groan in mock horror. You both laugh. The sound of it eases the tension around the wounded man, who's still lying still, breathing shallow. You glance at him again. He hasn't woken, but Elta sits close by, humming under her breath, stitching something you can't quite see. A pouch? A sling? Maybe a prayer. Even in a world this hard, someone always makes time to hope. You finish your hide and hang it to dry. Another completed task, another mark of usefulness. You stretch your back, and a vertebra cracks loudly. You wince, grin, and shake it off. Then, for a moment, everything stills. A breeze rustles the trees. The fire crackles softly. The The kids are quiet. No alarms. No panic shouts. No new injuries. Just this. The rarest thing in your world. Peace. It won't last. You know that. A storm could roll in. A predator could wander too close. The next foraging trip might end in injury or worse. But right now, at this exact moment, you are fed, safe, and warm. You lie back on the packed earth, arms behind your head, and watch the clouds drift above the cave mouth. One of them looks like a mammoth doing a cartwheel. You squint. Maybe it's just a blob. Either way, you smile. Midday has come and gone. You're still here, still standing. And that, in this world, is no small victory. The clouds thicken above you, casting long shadows that ripple over the clearing like slow waves. You stretch, a yawn slipping out before you can stop it. The warmth of the fire and the exhaustion in your arms are conspiring against your sense of duty, and for a moment you consider slipping off for a nap. But instead, you haul yourself upright again, because while early afternoons can be quiet, they're never idle. Not in your world. The afternoon is for foraging. That means it's time to follow the women. Not because the men aren't capable. Foraging isn't gendered like a modern office job, but because the older women have a sixth sense for spotting edible roots, nuts, and berries with a speed and certainty that borders on witchcraft. You've seen a grandmother point to a patch of ground and say, "Dig there." And sure enough, there's a cache of tubers right below, fat and clean and still damp with morning dew. So you grab your digging stick, your satchel, and a length of cord you might use for bundling. Then you fall and step behind the foraging party as they head out past the cave mouth and into the forest fringe. The older kids come too. They're learning which plants won't make their stomachs betray them in front of everyone. And there are always 2 or 3 of you carrying pointed sticks or throwing stones, just in case something toothy gets curious. The forest is thick but familiar. You duck under low branches and step over gnarled roots. The path you're taking isn't marked, but you've walked it enough times that your feet find their way even if your mind wanders. The smells change as you move. Damp leaves, crushed pine, the sharp scent of a fungus you'll never learn to like but can't quite forget. Today you're hunting for cattail roots and wild onions, with maybe a side quest for mushrooms if the weather cooperates. The ground is soft after yesterday's rain, perfect for digging. You and another forager kneel beside a shallow patch of cattails. She mutters something about the last time she found a snake in one, then plunges her stick into the earth with zero hesitation. As you work, the rhythm of it takes over. Stick pry pull, rinse in a nearby stream, stack in bundles, repeat. The conversation around you is light but constant, quiet laughter, reminders, memories. Remember that time we thought we'd found a yam, and it turned out to be a frog nest? Groans. Don't remind me. I still get nightmares about the squish. You smile. Even in the most ancient eras, humans find ways to turn misery into inside jokes. You pull up a clump of wild onions. White bulbs tangled like knuckles, the green tops flopping lazily. You breathe in. Sharp, earthy, oddly comforting. Food, medicine, maybe even a love charm, depending on who you ask. You tuck them into your satchel, careful not to crush them. Your fingers are stained and gritty. Your knees are wet, and a small ant has taken up residence inside your shirt. You ignore it. You're used to these small indignities. In fact, they make the eventual meal taste better. The world demands payment for every comfort. Sometimes that payment is blood. Sometimes it's a shirt full of ants. A little further into the woods, someone gives a quiet shout. Hazelnuts. You pivot and rush to join them. Sure enough, a low shrub is full of them, small, round, hard-shelled treasures. You crack one between your teeth and suck the meat out. Sweet, oily, slightly woody. Perfect. Everyone gathers handfuls, pockets bulging, satchels swelling. One kid decides to carry his loot in his hat, which turns out to be less effective than he hoped. Half his nuts hit the forest floor in a noisy cascade. There's a moment of stillness after that, a communal freeze. Too loud, too fast. You all skin the trees. Was it a rustle? You grip your digging stick. Someone else raises a stone. But then nothing. Just a bird, startled, taking off with a disgruntled squawk. You all laugh. Nervously. Too nervously. Because in this world, a single noise can be the line between dinner and disaster. You start to move more cautiously, listening with your whole body. Every creak of a tree branch. Every leaf turned underfoot. One of the foragers murmurs, "We should head back soon." The unspoken message, "This spot has been too generous." That never lasts. The forest always takes as much as it gives. So you loop your cord around your satchel to keep it from spilling and start retracing your steps. The sunlight is slipping sideways now, bending into that soft, buttery angle that signals the day's second act. You pass again under the leaning tree that looks like a frozen giant and skirt the puddle that never seems to dry. On the way, you pause by a fallen log. Mushrooms. Round, white, delicate. You lean in and sniff. Mild, not the skull-cracking kind. Probably. Mushroom identification is still debated among your people, and among modern historians too, funnily enough. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic humans had consistent mushroom taxonomy or just operated through brutal trial and error, as some smug lecture voice in the future might say. But you have your cues. A mentor taught you to test with your tongue. A tingle means danger. No taste. Probably dinner. Still, you only take a few. Never strip the log. Leave some for the insects, for the soil for next time. You're not religious. Not exactly. But you've learned that greed often brings curses. If not from the gods, then from your neighbors. Back at the cave, you deposit your harvest beside the others. It's a glorious mess. Greens, roots, berries, nuts, mushrooms, bark, even a few rogue eggs. One of the gatherers holds up a handful of weird blue fruit and says, I dare someone to eat one. Nope, you reply. Last time I accepted a dare, I couldn't walk straight for a week. They smirk. Was that the berries or the cliff jump? You don't answer. The evening prep begins. Fires rekindled. Water fetched. Kids sent to chase away the goats before they start nibbling at the firewood again. You sit near the sorting crew, helping peel bark and separate the edible from the dangerous. Every now and then, a toddler toddles by, wearing a leafy hat and demanding attention. You ruffle their hair and send them on their way. Food gets divided roughly, but fairly. Elders and injured first. Then children. Then everyone else. You know your place in the line, and you're fine with it. Tonight's meal includes roasted tubers, cracked hazelnuts, a stringy soup with bits of lizard, and a side of green stuff that tastes like sour grass and regret. You chew anyway. Better to eat than go to bed hungry. Again, while chewing, someone breaks out a bit of music. A bow and flute, 5 holes, slightly warped. The notes come soft and spiraling, like smoke. You lean back and let the sound carry you for a bit. Eyes closed, mind drifting. A few people clap in rhythm. Someone tries to hum along. The toddler from earlier starts dancing in little stomps, absolutely out of sync. It's perfect. Evening cool creeps in. You throw on your fur wrap, which still smells like the river. Someone has lit the big fire, and shadows dance high on the cave wall. You watch them flicker. Human shapes, animal shapes, impossible shapes. And then come the stories. A woman sits near the flame, her hands tracing patterns in the dirt. She speaks of the sun chasing the moon across the sky, of the giant who ate shadows and spat out children, of the bird who taught humans to steal fire. Her voice weaves like a net, soft and slow. You know these stories. You've heard them 100 times, and still you lean in, because these tales are not just entertainment. They are how you remember, how you pass down danger and wisdom and wonder. One day, you'll tell these same stories. Maybe with different names, maybe with a few extra jokes, but always with the same quiet reverence. Someone else adds a tale of their own, half true and half dream. You chuckle. Another person contradicts them, playfully offended. A minor debate erupts over whether the giant had 7 arms or only 6. Historians still argue whether storytelling in the Paleolithic era served primarily ritual, instructional, or social bonding functions. But sitting here, wrapped in furs full of onions and tubers, warmed by firelight and surrounded by laughter, you think maybe it's all three. The stars are coming out now, peeking through the clouds like bashful spirits. You stretch again, this time with more pleasure than pain. Another day nearly done. You haven't killed anything, haven't discovered fire, haven't carved a masterpiece into a mammoth tusk, but you foraged, fed, joked, helped, remembered. And in this world, that's enough. By now, the fire's glow is the heartbeat of your world, soft and steady, pulsing warm in the center of your community as night settles fully across the land. The air has cooled just enough to make the warmth matter. Shadows deepen and stretch. The stars begin their slow waltz overhead, and you huddle closer to the flames, your knees pulled in, arms wrapped loosely around them. This is not the part of the day where survival is your main focus. No, this is when your attention turns inward, when social fabric gets stitched and restlessness flickers out with the embers. And tonight, like most nights, the fire circle becomes something like a classroom, a courtroom, a comedy show, and maybe, if you're lucky, a flirtation arena too. Because as a Paleolithic human, nighttime isn't just downtime. It's story time, and also teaching time. You glance to your left, where one of the elders is gently lecturing a group of adolescents about how to shape a stone flake without slicing their thumbs open. Again, this lesson gets repeated often. Fingers bleed often. The teaching method involves a lot of side eyes and mock horror. This is how you plan to woo a mate? With a chipped off thumbnail. The adolescents laugh. One of them drops a flake. Another hides the fact that his most recent creation looks more like a triangle of regret than a usable scraper. You've been there. Everyone's been there. Teaching is informal, but constant. A way of life, not a scheduled chore. It's not just about flint and fire. It's how your people pass down knowledge about seasons, animal migration, edible versus inedible, and the dangerous in between, weather patterns, and how to avoid that curse bog that swallowed a goat and a spear last spring. There are no books. There are no written notes. There's just memory, and you, and repetition, over and over until it sticks. The person next to you leans over and begins showing a younger child how to twist fibers into a cord. The child's fingers fumble at first, making an impressively tangled mess. But eventually, the pattern becomes familiar. One strand over the other. A twist, a pull. A rhythm, like weaving music. It's mesmerizing and crucial. The cord might one day bind a spearhead or hold a sling pouch or secure a bundle of roots. Without it, you're down to your bare hands. And in this world, bare hands alone don't keep you alive very long. The child finally gets it. A tiny length of cord, proud and scrappy, is held up like a treasure. Everyone around offers approving nods, and someone even gives a small celebratory hoot. The child beams like they just invented gravity. In moments like these, your society transmits itself, quietly, patiently, and through shared triumphs, not lectures. Modern anthropologists call this situated learning. You just call it being part of the group. And as the group settles deeper into its nighttime rituals, the dynamics shift slightly. Teaching fades into entertainment. Laughter rolls more freely. Someone pokes fun at the guy who still insists mammoths are just hairy hills that move when no one's looking. Someone else responds by miming a hill slowly chewing grass. Everyone nearly chokes on their tuber mash from laughing. It's around now that the matchmakers begin their subtle maneuvers. A teenage boy offers an unusually large chunk of roasted meat to a girl who's been plaiting her hair all evening. She accepts it, but doesn't look directly at him. A few people notice. A few smirk. No one says anything yet, but trust. Everyone saw. These small courtship signals matter. In a world without dating apps, you have to communicate interest through shared food, eye contact, and sitting just slightly too close by the fire. One of the elders, probably on purpose, tells an old tale of how two lovers once wooed each other by exchanging spears until one broke a toe trying to show off. It ends with a fake sigh and a warning. If you must flirt, try not to limp into the next hunt. The fire pops loudly at that moment, as if to underline the punchline. Later in the night, someone stands up with a dramatic flourish. It's the group's designated mimic, a middle-aged woman whose talent for impressions has turned her into a star of sorts. She launches into a reenactment of yesterday's boar chase, complete with pig snorting and exaggerated tumbles into mud. The group roars. You clutch your ribs. Even the stone-faced elder smiles faintly. Laughter, like food, is shared. It's glue. It keeps the group from unraveling after hard days and harder nights. It makes danger feel smaller, if only for a while. And here's where it gets even more interesting. You're learning while you laugh. Because behind the absurdity of the reenactment is useful information. What direction the boar ran, how the terrain tripped someone, which weapons failed to pierce its hide. It's comedy, yes, but it's also education. And here comes a drum. It's not really a drum, but it functions like one. A stretched animal hide over a hollowed stump, struck with an antler. The rhythm starts slow. People begin to sway. Some hum. A few start to sing, a chant you've heard since childhood. Its words are nonsensical syllables, half rhymes, and humming moans. No one knows who first sang it. The beat picks up. A dance begins. You join it. Not because you're good. No one really is, but because it feels right. The firelight catches the sheen of sweat on your arms, the flick of hair, the blur of feet. You dance in a circle, your group whirling like leaves in a storm. This isn't performance. It's communion. Your ancestors did this. And if you're lucky, your descendants will too. But here's a curious little wrinkle. Some researchers argue whether early Homo sapiens even had consistent communal rituals like this. The evidence, footprints, residue, fire placement is fragmentary, and yet the rhythmic patterns in certain caves suggest something repetitive, something social. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic song and dance were celebratory, ritualistic, or tied to altered mental states. You suspect the answer is yes. Eventually, the drum slows. The chants fade. Breath returns to normal. You plop back down near the fire, your knees weak, but your spirit full. Someone tosses another branch onto the flames, and sparks rise like tiny spirits racing skyward. The stars are bright now, so bright it's almost obnoxious. A few people lean back on fur rolls, stargazing in silence. You hear a whispered story about how a hunter once shot an arrow so high it became the North Star. Another voice counters, "Nah, the stars are the eyes of our ancestors." You offer your own theory. They're holes poked in the sky so the gods can spy on us. Someone responds, "Then cover yourself up. You're embarrassing." More laughter. You lie back, watching the constellations twist slowly with time. You trace them with your finger, naming the ones you know. The snake, the great elk, the two brothers, and the silent one. Not the same constellations a modern astronomer would see, but meaningful nonetheless. Night deepens. A hush falls. Not imposed, not planned. Just natural. Voices drop to murmurs. Someone quietly sharpens a blade. Someone else combs their hair with a stick, each motion slow and mindful. A child falls asleep against a parent's side, their small mouth slack with dreams. You find your own spot, curl into your fur wrap, and listen. The fire crackles. Insects trill in the grass. The breath of the cave behind you is cool and steady. No words are needed now. You've learned, laughed, shared, danced, eaten, flirted, and remembered. The day has poured itself into night, and you've caught most of it in your open palms. It's quiet but not empty. There's a rhythm to these nights that never grows old. Even as the world shifts beyond your firelight, even as mammoths grow scarcer or rivers change course or new faces appear in your group, the nights stay the same. The same stories, the same warmth, the same slow spiral towards sleep. And just before your eyes close, someone at the edge of the circle whispers, "We should head to the cliff pool tomorrow." The fish are jumping again. A plan. A future. Even if it's only a day ahead, it's enough. You smile in the dark. Tomorrow, you'll wake with the sun and do it all again. The sky is still ink dark when you first stir. Not quite awake. Not quite asleep. You hover in that tender space where dreams begin to dissolve, but the cold morning air hasn't yet driven you upright. Someone nearby is already moving, softly shifting furs and bones. You hear the low murmur of flint against flint, the first coaxings of spark to catch kindling. The fire has died down overnight, just embers now, a sullen orange glow beneath the collapsed tent of ash. You pull your wrap tighter, shivering a little. The world hasn't decided to warm up yet, and neither have you. Eventually, you sit up. Slowly, you feel in your back. Not pain, exactly, but that dull reminder that you don't sleep on memory foam. You sleep on earth and woven mats, on skins softened by hand, dried in smoke, and probably still bearing the faint scent of the animal they once were. You rise and stretch. Your joints pop. Across the circle, others are doing the same. Some children blink themselves awake and immediately begin poking each other with sticks, nature's alarm clock. Someone groans, probably from last night's dancing. Today is not a hunt day. Not exactly. Today is for everything else. The unseen infrastructure of your daily existence. You glance at the handful of tools you laid out yesterday. A cracked scraper, a half-broken blade, a worn-out fire drill. They all need attention. You'll have to sit down and work through them one by one, sharpening edges, binding handles, trading out bits of sinew. It's not glamorous, but it's necessary. Without your toolkit in top form, you're little more than a hairless biped with bad balance and a lot of misplaced confidence. So, what do cavemen do all day when they're not fighting off bears or painting epic murals? Well, they craft. They repair. They plan. Welcome to the quiet machinery of Paleolithic life. First comes tool maintenance. You kneel down and begin to sort through your gear. The cracked scraper is salvageable. You just need to nap a bit off the edge. You select a hammerstone from the communal pile and strike carefully. There's a trick to it. The angle, the pressure, the rhythm. One wrong move, and you're left with a jagged chunk better suited to decorating a grave than slicing through hide. As you chip, others nearby are busy with similar tasks. One woman is reshaping bone needles, delicate and finicky. Another is carefully rubbing red ochre powder between stones, prepping it for future body paint or trade. A few adolescents are plucking sinew strands from a dried leg, their fingers sticky and pink. Fringe fact: some researchers believe sinew was often chewed to soften it before binding tools. So yes, chewing animal tendons was probably someone's designated job. You're thankful it isn't yours. Yet, there's a sort of meditation in these hours. A hush. You fall into a rhythm. Chip, rotate, inspect, chip again. The sun rises while your hands move, painting the landscape gold. The air warms. Insects buzz. Birds argue in the trees. Eventually, someone suggests a break. Food isn't just something you prepare, it's something you preserve. You move toward the drying rack, where yesterday's meat hangs in long strips, smoke curling lazily around it. You pluck a piece. It's chewy, a little gamey, and probably half dirt by modern standards. But it's yours, and more importantly, it will last. You chew slowly. Around you, others snack in silence, their jaws moving in unison like some ancient herd instinct. Not bad, someone mutters. Could use salt. Everyone laughs. It's an old joke. Salt is rare. Very rare. You've only tasted it once, years ago, when a traveler traded a chunk from a coastal find. You still remember how it made even boiled roots taste like a feast. But you get by with what you have, drying, smoking, burying things in cool soil, or wrapping them in hide and tucking them into the stream. Primitive refrigeration, less fridge, and more put meat in a hole and hope. While the group rests, plans are quietly discussed. A few people will head to the riverbank later to gather reeds. Others will check the trap lines, primitive snares you placed earlier this week in hopes of snagging rabbits or fowl. And a trio will walk to the next ridge to look for new flint. Good stone is like gold. The stuff nearby is mostly tapped out, and no one wants to hike for hours only to return with pebbles. You volunteer for reed duty. It's calming. The river is close, and the reeds are needed for weaving mats, baskets, and sometimes even temporary shelters. You grab your digging stick and a small sack. Someone tosses you a half-finished net and raises an eyebrow. You nod. Yeah, you'll work on it later. The walk to the river is peaceful. Birds scatter as you approach. A lizard scurries past your feet. You pause to sip from a clear stream, then squat beside the tall reeds. Your hands work swiftly, twisting, pulling, trimming. The stalks are pliable, fragrant, sharp at the edges if you're not careful. You gather armfuls and bundle them tightly. Then you sit under a tree and begin weaving the net, looping strands in and out. It's tedious, but hypnotic. The result won't be perfect, but it might snag a fish or two if you're lucky, or at least give the illusion of productivity when you return. Here's a twist. Archaeologists recently uncovered what they think are Paleolithic fishing weights, small perforated stones believed to have been used with nets. But not everyone agrees. Historians still argue whether those rocks were part of fishing gear or just decorative tokens. You suspect both could be true. Why not look stylish and catch dinner? Back at camp, the others return slowly. The trap team caught a bird, scraggly, but meat's meat. Someone else brought back a particularly lovely chunk of flint. And one woman found a patch of mushrooms, but no one's eager to test those just yet. You still remember the great vomiting incident from last spring. The afternoon slips by in a flow of small tasks. Someone repairs a water gourd with pine resin. Another teaches two kids how to pluck lice from hair without throwing them at each other. Priorities, you know? At one point, an argument breaks out over who gets to use the best hafting resin. It escalates until an elder steps in, whacks both parties with a stick, and redistributes the resin while muttering something about not raising chaos monkeys. Problem solved. Later, there's a quiet moment where you sit with an old man and help sharpen his spear. His hands shake too much these days, but he still knows how to guide yours. No, more angle, he says, like slicing a mammoth's patience. You grin. He grunts, satisfied. Even in the absence of formal leadership, your group runs on a delicate balance of mutual reliance and low-grade bickering. Tasks aren't always divided strictly by gender, though there are tendencies. But anyone can do anything, more or less, as long as they're willing to learn and put up with some teasing if they're terrible at it. By now, the sun has started to dip. Dinner is modest, some dried meat, a few roasted roots, a small fish caught by an older woman who swears her singing lured it into the net. No one's sure if she's joking. No one wants to ask. As you eat, someone casually mentions that tomorrow will be a hunt day. This isn't said lightly. Hunting days are different. Tense. Important. But for now, your body is sore in the good way, worked but intact. Your hands are rough, stained, useful. Your toolkit is mended. Your net is half done. Your group is intact. You recline again near the fire, listening as the same old joke about hairy mammoth hills gets recycled for the third time this week. You laugh anyway. You wake before the light does. Not by choice, your body's just learned the rhythm by now. There's a shift in the air, a subtle tension in the camp that says today is not for lingering. It's a hunt day. Even the kids aren't squabbling this morning. That's how serious it is. You don't talk much while preparing. The group knows its rhythm. Check your tools, grab your gear, smear mud on exposed skin if the sun's going to be harsh. You wrap yourself in a blend of animal hide and hope, tuck in your tools, and glance at the others. Everyone's silent, focused. There's a quiet respect to this kind of morning. Or maybe it's fear you're all pretending not to feel. Not everyone hunts, of course. The oldest and youngest stay behind, along with a few others who will focus on gathering, mending, and probably trying to keep the fire from wandering off again. You, though, you're part of the team moving out today. You clutch your spear. It's a good one. Ash shaft, fire-hardened point, sinew binding snug around the tip. Last week, you'd even rubbed it with tree resin, more for confidence than anything. If you don't believe your weapon will hold up when it counts, it probably won't. The target is a herd of red deer spotted 2 days ago, not far from the river gorge. Migratory, swift, skittish. It's a gamble, but then everything is. The walk begins under dim skies, feet crunching softly over dry leaves and twigs. You move in a staggered line, careful not to clump together, careful not to be seen before you're ready. One member of the group carries a carved wooden whistle designed to mimic deer calls. Another has smoke pellets, bundles of moss, and sage to distract or confuse prey if needed. Yes, cavemen had trickery in their toolkit too. You've got raw instinct, but you're not above theatrics. You pass familiar landmarks. The bent tree that looks like a stooped old woman. The mossy rock where someone claims they once saw a lynx fight a fox. No one believes it, but it's a good tale. These markers are memory maps. No GPS, no trail apps. Just generations of stories and the shape of the land. You pause to check for signs, broken grass, a hoof print, dung still steaming faintly. It's close. The group fans out, eyes alert. One man gestures silently. Up ahead, movement. You crouch low, heart pounding. The deer is just grazing, utterly unaware that 10 apex primates with high-functioning brain stems and mildly anxious bladders are stalking it from the brush. The plan is basic but deadly. A flanking maneuver. 2 of you loop wide, hoping to push it toward the others hidden near a narrow pass. You move slowly, each footfall a calculated risk. One wrong sound, one snapped twig, and the deer bolts. Which it does, because someone does snap a twig. You don't even turn to look, you just run. Now it's chaos. You crash through undergrowth, your breath loud, your spear in hand. The deer bounds ahead, muscles rippling, hooves like thunder on the soil. You feel your body stretch beyond comfort, beyond exhaustion. This is not jogging for cardio. This is survival-grade sprinting. Do or die, lunch or starve. Eventually, the beast hits the pass, and the others are ready. 2 spears fly. One misses. The other hits the flank. The deer stumbles. You get closer. It kicks wild panicked. Blood spatters a rock. Someone throws another spear. Another joins in. It's brutal, frantic, and then it stops. Just like that. Silence. A moment of stillness, so sharp it feels wrong. Everyone breathes hard, shaking, sweating. You taste iron in your mouth from dry air and adrenaline. The deer lies motionless. You approach slowly, ready to run if it twitches. It doesn't. You made the kill. Mainstream fact here. Most Paleolithic hunts weren't daily or even weekly. Big kills like this were rare. And when they happened, it was a major event, often feeding a whole group for days, if not weeks. You crouch near the carcass. Blood pools darkly beneath it. You say a quiet thank you, like your elders taught you. Not religious, not exactly. Just a nod to the invisible balance you're always gambling with. Then the work begins. You don't just drag an entire deer home, especially not across rough terrain. Instead, you butcher it right there in the field. Knives are drawn, not steel, flint or obsidian, sharp as a whisper but brittle. You got to be careful. One slip and you'll slice a finger down a bone. Skinning starts at the limbs. You slice carefully, peeling back hide, like unwrapping something both precious and grotesque. It's warm. It smells metallic, earthy, faintly sweet in a way that makes your stomach clench. You section the meat quickly, setting it into bundles made of bark or hide. Organs are inspected. Some are tossed, others kept. The heart is passed around for a taste. You chew it raw. It's warm and firm and tastes like triumph. Mostly. Quirky tidbit. Some archaeologists think Paleolithic people may have smeared blood on their faces after a hunt. either as ritual or intimidation. You don't do that today, but someone jokes about it, and someone else does flick a drop on your arm, grinning. Great. Now you're part of the unofficial blood club. You lash the bundles tightly. The heaviest cuts are hoisted onto a sled-like frame of branches and dragged back together. It's a slog. You grunt with effort, every muscle screaming in protest, but there's a kind of satisfaction to it too. Like hauling home the sun. You pass those same landmarks on the way back. The lynx fighting fox rock, the bent tree, but they look different now, more welcoming, like they know you've earned safe passage today. Camp comes into view. A cheer goes up. Children race toward the hunters, eyes wide, voices high. One child demands to see the stomach contents. You make a face and toss them a sinew scrap instead. They squeal with delight. Gross. The elders take charge immediately. The meat is divided. Some is roasted. Some is set to dry. Bones are separated. Big ones for tools, small ones for crafts, hollow ones for marrow. Nothing is wasted. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic people shared equally after a kill, or if the hunters got the choicest bits. In your group, they're the mix, respect for the hunters, sure, but a strong ethic of fairness too. No one eats while another goes hungry. That's not survival. That's stupidity. As dusk falls, there's a fire, brighter than usual. Spirits are high. Someone breaks into a victory chant, stomping around the fire like a bird with something to prove. You join in. You howl. You laugh until your face hurts. A woman pulls out a flute carved from bird bone and plays something haunting. Not quite music, not quite noise, just enough to make the hair rise on your arms. And that's when the stories begin. Tales of great beasts, of hunts gone wrong, and ones that went right in the strangest ways. One old man swears he once caught a wild pig using only a mirror shard and 3 shiny stones. He's lying, obviously, but no one calls him out. It's a good lie. As the fire dies low, someone pokes the pile of bones beside them and mutters, "Hope the spirits don't mind leftovers." Everyone chuckles nervously. Just in case, you scatter a few herbs into the fire. Never hurts to hedge your bets. You curl up near the fire, skin warm from exertion, full from the meal, still tasting the coppery tang of success. Tomorrow, your legs will ache. Your arms will complain. But for tonight, you're fed, you're safe, and your spear came back clean. Not every day ends like this. The sun blinks into your eyes long before you're ready for it. You wake sore, every joint grumbling like it's owed an apology. Yesterday's hunt lives in your muscles like a stubborn ghost. Even the fire's embers seem to groan as you stretch out your limbs and rub the grit from your face. But there's no time to wallow. This morning smells like work. The deer is gone, at least the parts you wanted to eat. But what's left is still useful. You grab a thigh bone as thick as your forearm and a bundle of sinew that's already halfway dried. The real artistry begins now, turning leftovers into tools. You shuffle over to the shade beside a squat rock that's become the unofficial crafting spot. It's already scattered with flakes of flint and bone shavings. Your people have no workbenches, no toolboxes, no instruction manuals, just memory, muscle, and 1,000 years of trial and error handed down from elders who figured out, somehow, how to shape survival from scraps. Today, you're making needles. Long, slender, deadly-looking needles. Nothing you'd want to step on, but perfect for threading sinew through hide. First step, the bone has to be cleaned, then cracked, then whittled. You wedge it against the rock and give it a sharp whack with a hammerstone. The crack is satisfying, like splitting open a secret. You sift through the shards for ones that taper naturally. And then you carve. You sit for hours just shaving, twisting, trimming, running your fingertip along the edge, sharpening it on a gritty stone. You hum quietly. The others nearby are working too. A woman smoothing hide with a scraping stone, a boy trying to carve a fishhook from an antler, and nearly slicing his thumb open in the process. The camp is peaceful in this way. It hums with soft activity. Mainstream fact, bone tools were a major innovation of the Upper Paleolithic. Needles, fishhooks, Even musical instruments were crafted from the leftovers of a kill. Bones weren't just debris. They were the plastic of the ancient world. You glance at the hide nearby, the one stripped from yesterday's deer. It's already been soaked in a mixture of brains and water. Yeah, you heard that right, brain tanning. Every animal has enough brain matter to tan its own hide, or so the saying goes. And while it sounds like a weird science fair project, it actually works. The brain's natural oils soften the hide, making it pliable, wearable, something between leather and stubborn cloth. You poke your finished needle through a strip of sinew, testing the tension. It glides surprisingly smooth. Success. That's the thing about life in your world. Progress is measured in fractions. One stronger spear, one tighter stitch, one more hour of sleep before the wind kicks up and ruins everything. Nearby, two elders are deep in discussion, debating the merits of adding more ochre to a batch of hide dye. One says it'll make it stronger. The other claims it just looks cool. Historians still argue whether prehistoric decorations were mostly functional, symbolic, or just vibes, as some trendy archaeologists might say. You suspect it's all three. After all, you once painted a handprint on a rock just because it felt like the thing to do. You walk over to the drying rack and check your snares. Small game traps, mostly woven from branches, bark, and stringy grass. You're not expecting miracles, but some days you get lucky. A rabbit, a squirrel, once a very confused badger that managed to chew through the cord and escape with the trap still dangling from its leg. You've been watching the badger population more carefully ever since. Quirky tidbit. Some prehistoric people used noise traps, rattles made from shells or seeds, to signal when something got caught. The Paleolithic version of a ring doorbell, basically. You check today's catch, one rabbit. Not bad. It twitches once when you lift it, then goes still. You offer a quiet nod of thanks, then take it over to the prepping rock, where you make quick work of the skinning. This one will be boiled for stew. Its bones? Save for tools. Its pelt? Maybe lining for winter moccasins. A young girl watches you work. She's maybe 5 or 6, and has been trailing you more lately. You hand her the rabbit's foot. She beams like it's treasure, which, honestly, it kind of is. This afternoon, you decide to do some weaving. Not baskets, not today. Today it's cordage. Long, twisted threads from nettle stalks, bark fibers, or even hair if you're desperate. You roll it between your palms until it twists into a strong thread, then double it and twist again, over and over. Cordage is one of those things you never think about until it's gone. It ties your shelter together, your tools, your snares. It's the duct tape of the ancient world. As you work, someone calls out. Another hunter is back with a bird. A fat grouse, wings half open, feathers still fluttering faintly. The hunter's proud. This one was caught with a bolus. You make a mental note to practice your aim again. And then, in the late light, the carver returns. He's an older man, with a stone tool, so worn it looks like it's part of his hand. He works quietly, scraping antler down to a thin shaft. This, he says, will be a new spear tip, but not for throwing. It's for a thrusting spear. Shorter, sturdier, designed for closer kills. You watch him work, then offer your own bone needle. He inspects it, nods, then, surprisingly, hands you a sliver of obsidian. It's rare, not found in your region. Someone must have traded for it. Obsidian is volcanic glass, sharper than surgical steel. It's fragile, but devastatingly effective. You feel it slice a strand of your hair just from brushing near it. With care, you can make a blade fine enough to slice meat paper thin. You sit side by side, working silently as dusk softens the edges of the world. Camp smells like boiled rabbit and smoked deer. Children are laughing, elders are humming, and your fingers are stained with ochre and resin. You lean back, spine cracking in at least 3 places, and look up at the stars beginning to blink awake. One glows especially bright. Someone beside you mutters that it's not a star. It's the eye of the beast that watches from the sky. No one knows what the beast wants, but it never blinks. You like that. It feels true, even if it's nonsense. You finish your obsidian blade and test it on a strip of bark. It cuts clean. You grin. It's almost too pretty to use. Almost. The wind picks up slightly. The fire crackles. A moth flutters by your ear like it's delivering a message in wing beats. And just before you lay your tools down for the night, you remember, tomorrow, you promise to help mend the shelter roof. More weaving, more cordage, more quiet repetition. But that's life here, isn't it? Shape, bind, stitch, scrape, repeat. Every moment, even the boring ones, add up to survival. You're not just living day to day. You're inventing tomorrow with sinew and stone and a little bit of nerve. And with that thought, you nestle into your sleeping place, tucking your blade close like it might dream beside you. The stars watch. The beast never blinks. Sleep peels away like old bark, and you wake to the sound of soft scuttling nearby. Something nosy rummaging just outside the shelter. Could be a scavenger, or just one of the children pretending to be a wolf again. You stretch with a groan and roll upright, your blanket of animal hide slipping off your shoulders like tired wings. Outside, the world is still dusky, but light is crawling its way into the cracks of everything. You step out into the cool dawn and squint toward the trees. Yep, just the kids. They're crouched behind a bush, arguing in whispers about whether a rabbit spirit lives in the hill cave or not. One swears it blinked at her last week. You smile and let them be. Imagination is just survival rehearsing in costume. Today is a gathering day. Hunting is flashy, sure. People write songs about it. Mark cave walls with triumphant antlers. But let's be real. Gathering is the backbone of your life. No fanfare, no drama. Just you and your foraging pouch and hours of bending, sniffing, and second-guessing which berry might kill you. You gather more than you hunt. Everyone does. Your ancestors already figured that out tens of thousands of years ago. Hunting gives bursts of protein, yes, but it's the plants, nuts, roots, and seeds that fill bellies and keep you going when the mammoths are nowhere to be found. So, you grab your digging stick, tie a corded pouch to your hip, and set off with a small group. 3 women, an elder man with a fondness for bitter leaves, and one boy who insists he can smell mushrooms even through bark. You believe him. Sort of. The first stop is the slope by the river, where wild garlic nods like sleepy dancers. The air smells sharp and green as you crush the leaves between your fingers. You gather what you can, enough for flavor, not so much that the patch dies off. That's the rule. Always leave enough behind for the plants to come back next season. Mainstream fact, early humans were exceptional at environmental management. Even without science labs or spreadsheets, they knew the rhythms of plant life intimately. Where to find the tastiest tubers, when to stop picking berries, how to rotate through different foraging grounds to avoid overharvesting. It wasn't luck. It was memory and respect. Next, the marshy edges, less glamorous, more squelchy. But cattails thrive here, and where there are cattails, there's food. The roots are starchy. The stalks can be roasted. Even the fluff gets stuffed into bedding or used as insulation. You wade in, water sloshing up your shins, and yank a few roots with a grunt. Mud sucks at your feet like a hungry ghost. One misstep, and your sandal disappears. Again, everyone laughs. You laugh too, just barely. The boy who smells mushrooms finds a patch under a rotting log. You all squat to look, peering at the delicate caps like scholars studying ancient runes. Some mushrooms are safe. Others? Not so much. Historians still argue whether Paleolithic people could truly distinguish toxic fungi, or just gambled a lot. Probably both. You've heard stories of people who dreamed too hard after eating the wrong cap and never woke up. You decide to skip mushrooms today. Instead, you head into drier woodland. Oak trees, the landscape, their gnarled limbs twisting like ancient dancers frozen mid-motion. Beneath them, acorns. Hundreds of them. Some still in their caps like little helmets. But you know better than to eat them raw. Acorns are bitter, so bitter they can make you sick. But with patience, they become something wonderful. You've learned to leach the tannins out, soaking them in running water for days, or even burying them in baskets by the stream. When softened and dried, they're ground into flour. Mix that with water and a little dried berry, and you've got cakes. Not exactly cupcakes, but hey, survival chic cuisine. You gather until your pouch strains with weight. The sun's higher now, and your back aches from bending, but you feel proud. This haul will feed your group for days, maybe even see you through a stormy spell. You rest beneath a shady outcrop and chew on dried berries from yesterday. A bee buzzes lazily by your ear. Far off, you hear laughter. Someone's found a beehive, probably. Risky business, that. You can get honey if you smoke the hive right, but it takes nerve and a good bit of not getting stung in the eyeball. Still, the reward is golden, sticky, and sweet. Almost mythical in how rare it is. Quirky tidbit. There's evidence that early humans used smoke not just to gather honey, but also to preserve it. In one case, ancient honey was discovered sealed in a clay pot, still edible after thousands of years. Imagine biting into a history that tastes like caramel. After your rest, the elder man leads you to a spot where he swears sweet roots grow. You follow, skeptical, but sure enough, you find wild carrots, not the plump orange kind, but skinny, pale threads with a peppery bite. Still, they'll do. You dig gently, avoiding slicing the root. You're rewarded with a few hand-length treasures. The wind carries the scent of smoke. Cooking fires, maybe. Time to head back. On the way, the children burst from the bush and pretend to attack you with stick spears. You pretend to collapse dramatically. One pokes your side and declares you kind of squishy for a hunter. You tousle his hair and promise he'll be squishy too if he eats as many acorns as you plan to. Back at camp, the rest of the group has returned from other gathering trips. There's a full spread now. Pine nuts, nettle leaves, wild onions, chickweed, and even a surprise bundle of hazelnuts that someone found in a forgotten grove. You trade a handful of garlic for a few nuts. A good trade. The rest of the afternoon is spent prepping. Leaves are dried. Roots are peeled. Acorns get split and soaked. One woman smashes berries into a pulp and spreads them thin over flat rocks to dry into fruit leather. The smell is mouth-watering. You make a mental note to steal a strip later. Then comes the fun part, chewing. No, not eating. Chewing bark strips into fibers for cord. It's tedious and gross, but your spit softens the strands better than water. So you chew, then twist, then spit, then chew again. Another person mixes clay and grass to start patching a storage pit. It's a shallow hole lined with basketry and packed with dried food, covered with bark and rocks. It stays cool and hidden from animals. It's not a refrigerator, but it's the next best thing. You sit back on your heels and admire the day's work. There's something deeply satisfying about this rhythm. Slow, repetitive, but filled with purpose. You didn't chase anything today. You didn't risk being gored by a boar or ambushed by wolves. And yet, your work today might do more to keep your group alive through the lean months. The sun sinks lower. Shadows stretch like sleepy arms. Someone starts humming an old tune about foxes stealing bread. You join in, tapping your knee in time. The fire is lit. People gather, and the stories begin. Tonight's tale is about a woman who could speak to seeds. She asked them when they wanted to be picked, and they answered her in whispers only she could hear. She grew the biggest turnips and the juiciest berries and never took more than she needed. The children believe it. You almost do too. The stars prick through the night sky like someone poked holes in a hide and held it over a fire. You lie back, acorns tucked safely in a bark pouch, stomach full from roasted tubers and berry mash. And as your eyes grow heavy, you dream of garlic rivers, talking roots and mushrooms with eyes. The stars are fading. You squint up as the blackness above your shelter begins to melt into dusky blue. One of the older men is already awake, stoking the fire with gentle prods like it's a sleeping pet. The flames crackle up obligingly, casting golden light on his face and painting flickers across the wall like tiny ghosts dancing. Your back aches. Yesterday's bending and digging and chewing bark strands and a fiber left its mark on you. You stretch slowly, feeling the stiffness of your legs argue with your brain. But there's no time for whining. Today, you're going to help construct something big. Shelter. You're not building a cave. Those are already there, if you're lucky enough to live near one. No, you're working on a semi-permanent structure, a hut or a lodge, depending on how generous you're feeling about your vocabulary. Something communal, something cozy. And yes, it has a leak and smells faintly of wet dog. But it's yours. Most people imagine cavemen squatting in caves all day, but that's like saying modern people all live in subway tunnels. Caves were valuable, sure, but there weren't enough to go around, and they weren't always convenient. Historians still argue whether natural shelters were used only seasonally or mainly reserved for rituals and burials. What we do know, you and your people built things. Good things. Some of those things still exist. Your ancestors built huts out of mammoth bones. Picture that. A frame made of curved ivory ribs, held together with hide lashings, walls padded with furs and sod. You don't have any mammoth bones handy today, but you've got flexible saplings, animal sinew, dry grass, and time. So, you grab a digging stick and trudge with a few others to the clearing where the framework waits, half-formed like a rib cage poking out of the soil. One man holds up a sapling that bends perfectly into an arc. The others nod. That'll be your central arch. Building begins not with tools, but with ideas. You talk quietly, not in words about load-bearing angles or structural integrity, but in gestures and past experiences. Remember when the wind knocked the last one sideways? Or tie it like old Nara did, tight like a gut string. The framework takes shape. You jam sharpened sticks into the earth in a rough circle, then begin lashing them at the top, creating a dome. Vines are good lashers, strong, flexible, and itchy when they dry. One of the teenagers cuts their finger and swears loudly. Everyone else nods in approval. Blood for the house gods. It's tradition now. You weave dry reeds through the gaps in the frame. It's a bit like making a basket big enough to live in. Long strands of grass get twisted into ropes, and you use them to hold down layers of hide for weatherproofing. Not fancy, not glamorous, but it'll keep the rain off your head and the frost from your bones. There's even a tiny entrance tunnel, just long enough to keep the wind from rushing in, but short enough that you don't feel like you're entering a bear den. Someone adds a decorative touch. Feathers tucked into a crossbeam, shells strung across the doorway. Not necessary, but beautiful. Mainstream fact? Archaeological digs at sites like Mazirik in Ukraine uncovered huts built from mammoth bones over 15,000 years ago. And not just shoddy little lean-tos, some had hearths, storage areas, and even arranged patterns on the floor. These weren't temporary panic shelters. These were homes. And here's the thing. People didn't just build huts and forget them. They maintained them, replacing thatch, retightening lashings, scraping off mold. Because a shelter wasn't just for sleep. It was for storytelling, for healing, for hiding, for eating, for birthing, and sometimes, yes, for dying. Around midday, you stop for a break. There's a communal pot bubbling near the fire, a stew made from yesterday's cattails, mushrooms someone swears won't kill you, and chunks of smoked fish. You dip a wooden spoon in, taste it cautiously, then grin. It tastes like earth and memory. Next to the fire, one of the older women is fletching arrows. You watch her hands, wrinkled, knotted, precise, as she binds feathers to shafts with sinew. Huts fall, arrows fly, she mutters. Make both strong. She's the closest thing you've got to an architect and a weapons engineer in one. After lunch, it's back to work. The hut's almost done, but you need insulation. This means a lot of crawling around on hands and knees, shoving moss and dried leaves into cracks. Your hands come away green and sore. One boy gleefully smears mud on the outside walls to make cave paint. You let him. Later, someone will scratch a deer into the drying mud with a stick. It's not art yet, but it's getting there. By late afternoon, the structure stands complete. It smells like bark, sweat, and wet fur, which, let's be honest, isn't all that different from you. You crawl inside and sit cross-legged, testing the space. The light filters through the reed walls like spiderwebs. Shadows flicker and dance. Quirky tidbit: some archaeologists believe that early shelters included skylights, tiny holes at the top of domes that could be plugged or opened depending on the weather. So maybe your ancestors invented the first moonroofs. Fancy. While others admire your work, a few of the teens start stacking stones into a circle nearby. A hearth. Fire needs a place, and fire needs rules. You help dig a shallow pit in the center of the new shelter and line it with rocks. Then you place kindling and twigs, the dry bones of trees, and coax a tiny flame into life. The smoke spirals upward, out the vent at the top, and just like that, the hut breathes. It's your new heart. The sun dips low, painting everything in gold. The hut's shadow stretches long across the earth like a sleeping beast. You sit back on a log, wiping mud from your hands, and feel something warm inside. Not just heat, but satisfaction. You made something that wasn't there this morning. Someone starts humming. Someone else adds rhythm by tapping a bone against wood. Slowly a rhythm grows. People gather in a circle again. Always circles. You know that by now. Humans like circles, around fires, around meals, around stories. One child says, "Let's sleep in the new hut tonight." And everyone cheers, even though they know they'll all be up in an hour when the smoke chokes someone. That's how first nights go. You volunteer to stay too. You crawl into the hut just after dusk, curl up beside the fire pit, and listen to the wind brushing against the grass outside like a giant hand stroking the world. The structure creaks softly in response. Not a protest, a conversation. You fall asleep in a home your own hands made. And in your dreams, the walls aren't made of grass and hide, but of bone and firelight and song. You wake up before the sun. The inside of the hut is dim, but the air is warmer than you expected. The fire died during the night, but its memory lingers, radiating faint warmth from the bed of ash and embers. You sit up slowly, ears filled with the hush of morning. The faint chirp of distant birds, a low snore from someone curled in a fur bundle, and the whisper of your own breath. The hut held up. No leaks, no collapses, no surprise snake roommates. A win in your book. You crawl out the entrance tunnel like a mole, blinking as dawn stretches its orange fingers across the earth. A breeze rustles the reeds, and your stomach reminds you that last night's cattail stew has long since burned away. Time to find breakfast, but don't reach for cereal. You're a forger now. This is the part of your day that often gets skipped in cartoons and museum displays. The hours upon hours spent wandering, crouching, sniffing, and nibbling plants that won't kill you. Foraging isn't just plucking berries. It's a complex memory game, a survival dance, and a test of trust in nature and your own gut. You grab your digging stick, your trusty, multi-purpose, notched-in charred friend, and start out with a few others. Foraging works best in groups. Fries spot more mushrooms. 8 hands carry more tubers. Plus, if one of you eats something poisonous, at least the others can panic in unison. The forest awaits. You step under the canopy, and the world changes. The air cools, the light dims, and the smell of soil thickens. You walk slowly, eyes scanning. It's not a race. The trees here are your old friends. That tall birch with appealing bark, you've stripped its bark to make containers. That knotty oak, it dropped acorns last moon cycle. You leached and roasted them. That clump of wild onions near the stream, you think you remember which ones those are. But you double check, because historians still argue whether early humans shared a universally taught plant lexicon, or whether each small group had its own limited catalog of edible versus deadly. You don't want to find out by accident. You bend down and gently dig around a root. The dirt is soft and loamy. Your fingers find a bulb, onion-shaped, familiar smelling. You nod and pull. It comes free with a squelch, and you hold it up like a prize. One of your friends grins and adds it to a woven pouch. Breakfast ingredient number 1. Further along, you find mushrooms. Not the big showy kind with the red caps and white spots. Those are drama queens and probably poisonous. No, you're after the subtle ones. The dull browns, the modest clusters hiding under leaves. You squat, observe the gills, the stem, the smell. You remember watching an elder test one of these with her tongue. No burning, no bitter taste. Probably safe. You grab 2. Probably. Then come the berries. Blue-black, tiny, growing on thorny bushes. You carefully pluck a few, pop one in your mouth, and wait. Sweet, a little tangy. Your memory says yes. Your taste buds say yes. Your anxiety says, well, maybe just 3. You eat 5. Quirky fact. There's evidence that Neanderthals used toothpicks, and that some even developed cavities from eating too many sweet wild fruits. So yes, even cavemen had sweet tooth problems. As the sun rises higher, your pouch gets heavier. Berries, roots, a few edible leaves, and a lucky find. Wild honey tucked inside a hollow tree. That was a team effort involving smoke, a long stick, and a fair number of stings. But sweet, golden victory tastes even better when your face is swollen. You sit on a rock to rest. Someone breaks open a tuber and offers you a bite. It's starchy, earthy, and slightly chewy, like a potato wearing hiking boots. It'll do. Foraging isn't glamorous. Your knees ache. Your back is wet with sweat. One of your group got a leech on their ankle. Another stepped on something sharp. You've all got burrs in your hair, but no one's complaining. You're carrying lunch in your hands. That's power. And the landscape around you isn't random. It's memory-laced. That grove, you know it blooms with sweet blossoms in spring. That patch of weeds, you remember Grandma saying, boil those 3 times or kiss your guts goodbye. That ridge, last year, a bear was spotted there. You steer clear. The land is your map, your pantry, your danger zone. Your mobile knowledge library with dirty feet. By midday, the group loops back toward the camp. You take a longer route along a stream bed. That's where you spot it. Flat stones, warm in the sun, and scattered among them, the delicate fronds of wild celery. You kneel and snip a few stalks with a sharp stone flake. Bonus snack. And then, jackpot, a tree whose bark you recognize, slightly sweet-smelling, with vertical ridges. You scrape a bit. It's willow. You remember someone saying the bark helps with headaches. You collect a strip, just in case. Early pain relief, courtesy of prehistoric pharmacology. As you walk, you joke with the others about the Great Berry Disaster, when someone last month mistook inedible berries for food and had the runs for 2 days straight. The group roars with laughter, even the victim. Everyone's been there. Back at camp, you empty your finds onto a hide mat. A collective sorting begins. The older members sniff and inspect each item. Too bitter, one mutters, tossing a leaf. Save this one for drying. Roast these first. They're memory keepers, the original recipe books. One of the teens starts smashing berries into a mush with a flat rock. Another grates tubers into thin strips. Someone else begins boiling water in a heated stone pit, using hot rocks dropped into bark bowls, a process that feels like a magic trick every time. Mainstream fact, boiling in bark containers was totally possible and practiced by heating stones in fires and then transferring them into water-filled vessels, raising the temperature enough to cook without burning the container. Soon, a stew simmers. A sweet mush paste thickens on a flat stone. A few roots are tossed into coals for roasting. You help skewer mushrooms on twigs and prop them near the fire. One catches fire and you quickly blow it out, laughing. It's not gourmet, but it's good. The aroma fills the air, earthy, herbal wild. You sit around the fire with the others, dipping bits of tuber into the berry mash. It's a chaotic meal. No courses, no utensils, just fingers, laughter, and mutual satisfaction. You eat until your stomach hums and your hands are stained with juice. After lunch, you lay back in the grass, staring up at the sky, belly full. Someone dozes beside you. A child is drawing in the dirt with a charred stick. You feel the pulse of the day slow down. Later, the leftovers will be smoked or buried in cool pits for storage. Some of the honey will be spread on bark to dry, making a chewy treat. The willow bark will be dried and stored for when someone's head feels like it's full of bees. Foraging isn't just food gathering. It's medicine making. It's remembering. It's guessing. It's praying. It's also gossip. Because foraging walks are prime time for catching up. Who's flirting with whom? Who's snoring scared the deer off last night? Who's been slacking on tanning hides? Even in the wild, tea gets spilled, just not the kind you steep. As the sun begins to dip again, you feel content. Your day was spent gathering not just plants, but knowledge, connection, flavor, and laughter. And maybe one or two minor allergic reactions. Nothing a little willow bark can't fix. Tomorrow, you might hunt, or build, or sing. But today, you foraged. You fed yourself with your hands and your brain. And you did it in bare feet. You wake up with the memory of berries on your tongue and the smell of smoke lingering in your hair. The morning is cooler, crisper. A mist lingers just above the grass, curling between huts like it's eavesdropping on dreams. The camp stirs slowly. A few groggy yawns, the soft crackle of fire being coaxed back to life, and the flap of a hide as someone steps out. Today isn't about food. Not directly. Today is about the other kind of work. The kind that keeps your stuff from falling apart. The kind that builds comfort from raw wilderness. The kind that gives your hands little blisters and your muscles a low, satisfying burn. You have chores. And yes, even in prehistory, nobody escapes chores. First, the tools. You check your personal stash. A digging stick, a hand axe, a flint scraper, and a couple of bone awls. Your prehistoric toolkit. Your favorite scraper is chipped. Time to fix that. You grab a flint core, hold it just so, and strike with another stone. The sharp clack echoes out like a language only rocks understand. A flake pops off. You test its edge, clean, deadly sharp. Perfect. Mainstream historical fact? Flint knapping was incredibly sophisticated. Archaeologists have identified different cultural styles. Acheulean hand axes, Mysterian scrapers, each with signature shapes and techniques. These weren't just rocks. They were the smartphones of their time. You retouch the edge, lean back, and admire your work. This tool might help dig tubers, butcher meat, or even craft other tools. Multi-purpose magic. Nearby, someone's twisting fibers into string. A teenager sits with a pile of inner bark strips, rolling them between their palms, adding a little water, twisting, and repeating. You help. Twist, pinch, twist. It's rhythmic, almost hypnotic. The string feels rough at first, but softens as it dries. Soon, it'll bind spear points or form part of fishing net. You glance over at another group repairing a hide shelter. Two people hold the heavy fur in place while a third pushes a bone needle through the edge, threading sinew through pre-poked holes. Their fingers move quickly, practiced. Sewing, prehistoric edition. Quirky fact, some early needles, made from bird bones, had carved eyes for thread. An astonishing level of craftsmanship for people who hadn't even invented writing yet. You go to check your own shelter next. The roof is sagging a bit on one side. You gather some sturdy branches and begin reinforcing the frame. Your hands are sticky with sap. You mutter a few words not fit for polite mammoth company when you step on a thorn. Someone laughs. You flip them a berry. Eventually, the structure feels solid. You lean against it and let out a breath. Shelter is never truly finished. It's a living project, always needing more thatch, more support, more patchwork. Someone passes by with an armload of dried dung. You don't even flinch, because that's fuel, baby. Dry animal dung is your best friend in a damp world where firewood is often scarce. It burns slow, doesn't smoke too much, and keeps the fire going through the night. Not glamorous, but effective. You pile some near your hearth. Then it's on to basket weaving. Now, you may think basketry sounds like a sleepy, afternoon by the river kind of task. You'd be wrong. This is intense. You need to strip bark or reeds just right, not too dry, not too wet. You need to soak some of the fibers overnight. Then you sit, legs crossed, weaving over, keeping tension steady, shaping with care. Every time you mess up, the shape warps. And if it warps too far, you have to start over. Still, it's worth it. Baskets carry food, hold embers, store tools, and sometimes even serve as makeshift baby cradles. You're halfway through shaping one when a young child toddles over and plops down beside you, mimicking your movements with a twig and a feather. You smile. That's how most skills are passed on, by watching, by trying, by failing in full view of the tribe. Historians still argue whether teaching in early societies was formal or entirely observational. Did someone say, "Here, let me show you," or was it more, "If you watch long enough, you'll figure it out"? You suspect it was a bit of both. You hand the kid a strip of reed. They try to chew it. Close enough. After a break and some smoked root snacks, you head to the edge of the camp to help with repairs on a fish trap. The woven willow frame has sagged and several cords have snapped. You work with two others to reshape the funnel. Fish enter easily but can escape, unless your trap is sloppy, in which case the fish throw a party and leave with souvenirs. Someone brings over freshly chewed pine pitch. Yes, chewed. Saliva softens it. Then it cools to form a waterproof seal. You smear some along weak joints. Messy, sticky, effective. You wonder what future humans will use instead. Probably still duct tape. As the trap is finished, you hear singing. Not a concert, more like a work hum. A low, wordless tune passed from throat to throat. It's half lullaby, half rhythm guide. You find yourself humming along without realizing. It keeps the pace, keeps the mind from wandering, keeps the bees away, or so you like to believe. Music and work go hand in hand. And not just now, forever. Quirky historical tidbit. Some archaeologists argue that rhythm and music developed because of tasks like these. Grinding grain, weaving mats, hammering stones, repetitive work find a friend in sound. And so maybe, just maybe, your ancestors were making mixtapes out of mammoth tusks and reeds. By late afternoon, the camp looks busier, neater, slightly less like a disaster zone. There's fresh patching on 3 shelters. New string coiled and drying. A basket holding fire-starting fungus and flint flakes. You take a deep breath and stretch. Your hands are rough. Your shoulders ache. You feel accomplished. And then someone calls your name. Repair duty, round 2. This time it's a spear whose tip has loosened. You wedge it between your knees, unwrap the fraying sinew, check the notch, clean it, then retie with new fiber. You dab some sap to seal the joint. It dries like resin armor. You give a test jab. Solid. Tool maintenance is a love language here. Someone else brings over a cracked gourd container. You offer ideas. Mend with pitch or split and bind with cordage. A team effort. The sun dips lower. Shadows grow long. Evening chores begin. You gather sticks for the fire, enough to catch before the dung goes in. A child watches, wide-eyed, as you build a teepee of twigs. You let them strike the sparkstone. After 3 tries, a little flame catches. They giggle and clap. You pretend you weren't worried. As night falls, everyone settles in with quieter tasks, smoothing arrow shafts, rubbing ochre on hides, grinding seeds into paste. You sit with a group repairing clothing. Your needle slips a few times. You curse under your breath. Someone offers dried berries as motivation. It works. Slowly, a soft peace settles over camp. The firelight flickers. The smell of pitch, smoke, and roasted plant mash blends into something weirdly nostalgic. Someone plays a flute made from bird bone. 3 notes, endlessly repeated. A baby dozes with a half-finished net in their lap. You hum again. Work is never done here. But it isn't drudgery. It's community. It's creation. It's survival disguised as craft. You tie off your thread and hold up the repaired tunic. Not perfect, but warm. Durable. Real. You hand it over with a grin, and they try it on. It fits. Sort of. They shrug and smile anyway. Tomorrow, there will be more things to fix. But for now, you stretch out by the fire, the last of the smoke curling up like a quiet prayer. You've worked and you've built, and your fingers smell like bark and beeswax. It's been a good day. You're curled next to the fire, cheek against your arm, the warm glow stroking your face like a sleepy hand. Somewhere, someone is still softly humming, and a few last whispers float into the night. But you don't sleep. Not just yet, because you're on watch tonight. And that means you've got a front row seat to the darker half of caveman life, staying safe. You rub your eyes and stretch. Behind you, the others are bundled in furs, curled together like a pile of oversized kittens. The fire crackles, spitting tiny sparks into the sky. Out beyond the camp's edge, it's a wall of black. The night in the Paleolithic doesn't do half measures. It swallows everything. A twig snaps in the distance. You freeze, breath held. Just the wind, maybe, or something hungry. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. You're not top of the food chain. Not really. Not when the sun goes down. Out there are cave lions, hyenas, saber-tooths. Even a cranky woolly rhino could ruin your night if it wanders too close. And let's not forget the real nightmare, other humans. Sometimes they're friendly. Sometimes they're just close enough to your group to understand what you have and want it. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, you'll know. That's why you're here, clutching a spear, ears pricked like a rabbit on espresso. Mainstream historical fact? Early humans organized cooperative defense strategies. Some evidence points to lookout systems, group tactics, and alarm signals because staying alive was very much a team sport. You're not just a lone hunter-gatherer. You're part of a living, breathing security network. And yet, the fear is real. That sound again. You rise slowly, heart thudding. Spear tipped steady, eyes adjusting. You creep forward, feet silent on the packed earth. Every shadow could be an ambush. Every bush might hide teeth. You pause, squint, and there it is, 2 glowing dots. Oh, a deer, big ears. Nervous blink. She huffs and bounds off, her white tail flashing like a flashlight saying, "Nope, not today." You laugh under your breath. Your own little moment of prehistoric jump scare. As dawn tiptoes into the sky, the others wake one by one. You hand over watch duty, stretch your stiff legs, and pretend you weren't totally imagining monster bears for 4 hours straight. Security doesn't end with night watch. There's the entire daily perimeter dance. You and a couple others head out to check the edge of camp. You scan for fresh tracks, animal droppings, disturbed stones. You spot some claw marks on a tree, but they're days old. Still, it sets the tone. One person scatters dried pepper seeds and pungent herbs. Your version of do not enter signs. Historians still argue whether early humans used deterrent tactics deliberately, but it's not hard to imagine someone figuring out that smelly stuff repels curious animals, or at least discourages them from peeing on your hide shelter. You dig a shallow trench around your fire pit to help prevent stray embers from setting the grass alight. It's all these little routines, the small rituals of safety. You even check the tree where you hang food bundles. If the knots are tight and the branch hasn't sagged, you're good. If not, well, let's hope raccoons haven't figured out how to make ladders yet. The sun climbs higher, and your mind drifts to shelter defense. Not just against predators, but the elements. Wind, rain, snow. You reinforce the thatch roofs, add extra rocks around the base of each hut, and make sure the firewood stash is covered. Because once, during a storm, the wind picked up a sleeping mat and flung it into the woods like it owed the weather money. You haven't forgotten. Someone's sharpening spears. Another's checking a net trap. A third is dragging thorny branches to restack the sleeping area border. Primitive barbed wire, if you will. Quirky fact? In some regions, humans built partial palisades or even dug ditches. Not castles, but defensive setups nonetheless. These weren't just nomadic flops. They were fortified camps. And then there's the human threat. You've seen strangers before. Maybe once every few months, Someone unfamiliar crosses the horizon. Sometimes it's a family. Sometimes a lone traveler. Most keep their distance. Sometimes there's a trade, flint for ochre, dried fish for fire starter. Other times it's just wary stares, a shared nod, and separate paths. But not always. Your group has stories. About fights. About theft. About the one time someone snuck into camp and tried to steal a stone blade. Got chased off by a half-naked grandma, wielding a burning stick and a war cry that could shatter obsidian. She still brags about it. You keep your own tools close, never unattended. You wear your smaller blade tucked into your fur belt. Not that you're spoiling for a fight, but because you've learned. Everyone here has. Conflict leaves marks. You've seen healed over spear wounds. A broken rib that never set right. A missing finger that folks say got bit off, but no one will say by what. You help teach the kids where to hide if something goes wrong. Under the meat drying rack. Into the hollow log behind the berry patch. They nod like it's a game, but it's not. It's never just a game. Historians still argue whether organized warfare existed in early human groups or whether violence was mostly reactive and individual. But you've got a gut feeling, when resources are scarce, even cousins can become enemies. Still, you're not a pessimist. You believe in people, or at least in the ones beside you now, because you've seen what it looks like when your group comes together. The wall of bodies between a child and a predator. The loud, rattling chants that scare off a lion. The way someone always volunteers to sit up late, eyes scanning the dark. Like you did, and will do again. You even have weapons now that aren't just for hunting. You've got spears tipped with flint, hardened in fire. Clubs with notches that bite. And the greatest weapon of all, the group. The scream of 30 voices and 30 bodies charging as one. Even the forest gets quiet when that happens. Back at camp, someone proposes a fire drill. Well, not a literal one, but a safety check. You go through the signals. 1 whistle means gather. 2 means hide. 3 means prepare to flee. The elders thump the rhythm on a drum made from stretched hide. Everyone repeats it. Even the toddlers bang along on rocks. Your ancestors had no cell phones, but they had signals, codes, patterns. That's how you stay safe when no one else is coming to help. Evening nears again. Someone spotted big cat tracks earlier. Not fresh, but close enough. You decide to double the watch. You also set a ring of dried dung fires. Smoky but effective at deterring predators. If anything crosses into camp, it'll get a whiff of that and think twice. Or at least pause long enough for you to jab it in the face with a stick. The kids are tucked into the inner shelter tonight. The elders sit closest to the central fire, flanked by the strongest adults. The spears are sharpened. The flint blades gleam. You're tired, but safe. And that's everything. As you settle in for a brief nap before your turn on the next watch, someone leans over and whispers, "Hey, remember when you freaked out over that deer last night?" You chuckle. "Totally. I was one paupering away from hurling my shoe." You weren't wearing shoes. Exactly. They laugh softly, and the sound, that brief, warm burst of humor, is the best security system of all. Because fear's real, but so is joy, and courage, and duct tape, well, its ancient equivalent. The morning fog curls like ghost breath around your ankles as you step away from camp, basket in one hand, sharpened digging stick in the other. The air tastes like damp moss and ash from last night's fire. Somewhere, a bird yells its 3-note morning tune, loud, rude, and unforgivably chipper. You grunt back, which seems fair. Today, you're foraging. Not the flashy kind with heroic spear throws and animal blood and dramatic wrestling matches with mammoths. No, this is the slow, steady treasure hunt of root digging, berry squishing, and fungus sniffing. The less cinematic part of survival, but arguably the one keeping everyone's teeth in their mouths. You head toward the riverbank with a couple of others, weaving between trees like ghosts in fur cloaks. Your eyes scan the forest floor, looking for signs, broken stalks, disturbed soil, that telltale zigzag of rabbit tracks. But mostly, You're after the low-hanging fruit. Literally. Mainstream historical fact? Foraging provided the bulk of daily calories for most prehistoric humans. Meat gets all the drama, but plants did the heavy lifting. Grasses, tubers, berries, nuts. These were the dependable stars of the caveman pantry. You kneel beside a patch of starchy roots, wild yams, or something close. You dig with practiced rhythm, careful not to bruise them. The soil is soft here. You twist out 2 fat roots and knock off the dirt, tucking them into your basket. Beside you, someone whistles softly. You glance over and see a bush drooping with purple berries. You both grin, then frown. Berries can lie. Some kill. Some purge. Some just taste like despair wrapped in disappointment. You chew one cautiously, wait. Your tongue prickles. Bitter but not deadly. Probably. Your companion tastes, nods, and says, "No hallucinations yet. Let's gather." You both chuckle. Quirky tidbit. Some hunter-gatherer societies may have intentionally used mild hallucinogens in ritual or medical contexts. Not these berries, but others certainly. Makes you wonder how many people had to go on wild psychedelic rides before that knowledge stuck. You fill your basket, then follow a trail of crushed grass that leads to a hazelnut grove. The shells crunch satisfyingly underfoot. You crouch to start cracking, tucking whole handfuls into a pouch. There's something comforting about the regular rhythm of this. Crack, inspect, chew, repeat. Back at camp, others are busy with the non-nut parts of the menu. Someone's scraping bark into fibers. Another is gathering edible mushrooms. And someone else is roasting ants over a flat stone. You raise an eyebrow. They raise a roasted ant. Want one? You try it. Crunchy, nutty, slightly smoky, weirdly good. Historians still argue whether early humans relied heavily on insects or only turned to them in lean times. You're not sure where today falls on that scale. But it's not the worst snack you've had. Far worse was the fermented fish paste incident. You don't talk about that. The sun rises higher, and you make your way toward the stream. There's mint growing along the bank. You pick some, chewing a few leaves just to freshen your breath. Not because anyone cares, but because you do. Even in the Stone Age, there's something satisfying about not smelling like a swamp weasel. You scoop water with a woven container and follow it back up to the trickling part of the stream where the roots grow in clumps. These are tricky. If you pull them wrong, they break. If you dig too greedily, you damage the soil, and they won't grow back. This isn't farming, but it's the whispered prelude to farming. You pause a moment, looking at how the plants grow. You imagine coming back here again and again until someone finally asks, "What if we made these grow where we want?" The seed of an idea, quite literally. But not today. You return to camp with your bounty. Baskets of tubers, nuts, fruit, and leafy greens. The sorting begins. Some of the roots will be roasted tonight. Some will be dried for later. A few are pounded into mush and mixed with crushed nuts to make paste balls that you jokingly call prehistoric energy bars. Someone else has brought a beehive. Oh yes, you all gather, giddy and cautious, as they crack it open with smoke and skill, scooping out the waxy comb. Honey drips in slow golden threads, and you lick it from your fingers, eyes wide like a child at their first birthday. It's like sunbeams and dreams on your tongue. Foragers don't just find calories. They find joy. And it's here in this sticky sweetness, in the crisp snap of roasted roots, in the soft give of mushrooms on a hot stone. You don't have recipes, but you do have flavor, and fire, and friends to share with. It's not just about eating to survive. It's about building a rhythm, a system of knowing where and when things grow. What's safe? What's delicious? What's only if you're desperate and have lost a bet? There's a communal map in everyone's head. The berry patch on the East Ridge, the good mushroom hollow near the fallen pine, the garlic-scented greens by the waterfall. You don't write it down. You pass it on, in stories and songs, and don't touch that unless you want to spend the night sweating and talking to ghosts warnings. You're not a scavenger. You're a connoisseur, You've got a mental calendar that's richer than any stone carved chart. You know that in spring, wild onions pop. In summer, the blackberries flood. In autumn, the nuts rain down like tiny edible blessings. And in winter, well, you hope you stored enough to last. Tonight, there's a feast. Okay, maybe not feast by modern standards. No tablecloths or candlelight. Just roasted roots, smoky mushrooms, a few wriggly roasted beetles, and a drizzle of precious honey shared on leaf plates. But in the flicker of firelight, with laughter echoing and sticky fingers waving stories through the air, it feels like a celebration. Because you found enough. Because you tasted the land and didn't die. Because tomorrow, you'll do it all again, wandering, listening, touching the earth like a friend's face, coaxing out nourishment one bite at a time. And yeah, you'll still gag on the occasional bitter root and swear vengeance on deceptive berries. But mostly, you'll remember the honey. You wake up before the light cracks the sky, wrapped in fur and the scent of embers. Your legs are sore from crouching, your hands ache from basket weaving, and your mouth is still stained slightly purple from last night's berry binge. Worth it. But today's different, because today you're learning something. Not the accidental kind of learning, like finding out that wasp nests and poking sticks are a tragic combo, but the deliberate kind. It's skill day, and everyone's watching the elder with the twisted fingers and eyes like storm clouds. They say he remembers the winter before you were born, when the river froze solid and the only meat you had came from digging frozen frogs out of the mud. This man has stories, and now he's got your full attention. He grunts, squats near the fire, and starts chipping away at a chunk of flint with steady, rhythmic taps. It's not random. It's poetry in stone. You sit cross-legged, leaning in, blinking through smoke as he shapes the future out of a rock. Mainstream historical fact? Flint napping, yes, it has a name, was a complex, multi-step process passed down from generation to generation. And it wasn't just brute force. It took finesse, knowledge of angles, pressure, and how different stones fractured. You reach for your own piece, fingers clumsy, and try to copy him. Crack. A sharp flake shears off. Crooked, ugly, but still, it slices a strand of bark. You hold it up like a trophy. Someone behind you claps, softly. You grin. That's the beginning. Then come the stories. As you work, the elder talks. Not at you, around you. The tale of the obsidian cave up north, where the stones sing when you tap them. Of the woman who chipped a spearhead, so fine it pierced a bison's eye 20 paces. Of the boy who tried to nap with frozen poop and lived in shame for a week. You laugh. You all do. But you're listening, because this is how knowledge survives. Not in dusty books, in fingertips and rhythm. In legends and examples and calloused hands showing you, again and again, where to hit, how to hold, when to wait. The morning drifts into midday, and the elder shifts the lesson. Now it's cordage. He shows you how to strip bark into fibers, then twist and braid them in a strong rope. You practice until your thumbs are raw. You tie knots, test their strength, try again. Eventually, you're making nets, snares, slings, and jokes. Look, someone says, holding up a wonky bundle, I made a snake. Someone else deadpants. Impressive. It looks like it died of embarrassment. More laughter. Learning isn't quiet in your world. It's messy, loud, full of missteps and teasing and proud moments when someone finally splits a log just right or throws a rock and actually hits the target. Like you do. Later. Once. And then you miss 8 more times. But hey, progress. Quirky historical tidbit. There's evidence that children in prehistoric societies played with miniature tools. Tiny spears, small digging sticks, suggesting that toys were actually training equipment. Prehistoric parenting was less about bubble wrap, more about here's a knife, don't stab yourself. In the afternoon, it's cooking. You gather with the fire tenders, the ones who always smell like smoke and know 50 ways to roast a root. Today's lesson, hot stone cooking. You watch as they heat smooth stones in the fire, then drop them into a leaf-lined pit of water and herbs. Steam erupts like a geyser, and someone cheers. Meat goes in next, rabbit, maybe. Tubers follow. The scent is divine. You help crush herbs with a rock, smear them on the meat, then wrap it in bark and slide it into the steam pit. There's patience involved, something you don't always have. But today you wait. You want to see how it turns out. While it cooks, the oldest woman in the group begins humming. It's low, hypnotic. A song you've heard before. One used during childbirth, they say. One used when teaching a child to walk or when comforting the dying. Learning isn't just hands and tools. It's voices. Songs, chants, rhythms. You can't write it down, but you remember it all the same. That melody stays in your bones. And then it's ready. The steam lifts. The bark peels back. The meat flakes, tender and glistening, infused with wild garlic and wood smoke. Everyone eats together, fingers sticky, faces glowing. You say thanks, not out loud necessarily, but in the way you pass a piece to the person beside you, in the way you look at the elders with quiet reverence, and how you don't complain, even when the rabbit is a little chewy. And then, of course, someone tries to show off. They juggle hot stones. Badly. You all scream and duck, and someone loses a piece of meat to the dirt gods. Laughter explodes, wild and unfiltered. Even the elders chuckle. Later still, you gather around the fire again. It's storytelling time, but not just fun tales, teaching stories. The one about the boy who stole an elder's flint and had to live on snails for a month. The girl who tamed a wild dog with nothing but dried fish and stubborn kindness. The traveler who followed the river too far and came back with a broken leg and a rock that sparked fire. These are your textbooks. Historians still argue whether oral tradition passed on exact knowledge or just general vibes. But in your world, it's precise. You remember which berry turned the boy's tongue blue, which trail led to the mammoth bones, how many paces to the tree with a hollow trunk full of bees. Every detail matters. Night falls, and your brain is buzzing. You've learned so much: flint, rope, cooking, songs, survival tips. But mostly, you've learned how to learn. Not alone, together. Through doing, sharing, messing up, and laughing off. Before bed, you sit with your friend, both of you examining your clumsy spearheads. Yours looks like a potato. Yours looks like a potato that's been stepped on. Trade, you offer. They consider. Only if you throw in one of those honey roots. Deal. The trade is made. It's ridiculous. It's perfect. Because learning in your world isn't some solemn ceremony. It's woven into everything. Every moment. Every joke. Every mistake. Every success. The knowledge of the tribe lives in you now. In scraped knuckles and smoked rabbit and a stone knife that barely works, but you made it. Tomorrow, you'll teach someone else. And the story will continue. Your morning begins not with movement, but with watching. A kind of slow awakening as the world glows gold and green around you. The forest hums with life. Leaves tremble with insects. The wind speaks in a hush, and birds gossip across the treetops. But it's the animals you're here for today. Not to hunt, to learn. Tracking begins before you even leave camp. It's in the way a dog's ears twitch, the way the birds fall silent for a heartbeat, the way you smell wet fur or see disturbed moss on a nearby tree trunk. It's not just about paw prints. It's reading the world like a wrinkled old storybook, one smudge of mud, one crushed blade of grass at a time. You trail behind one of the camp's best trackers. She walks slowly, knees bent slightly, one hand brushing the air, the other pointing silently as she moves. There, a hoof print, soft edges, fresh. There, droppings, still warm. A deer passed here not long ago. Mainstream historical fact? Prehistoric humans were exceptional trackers. Some modern-day hunter-gatherers, like the sand people of southern Africa, can identify individual animals by the pattern of their footprints and track prey over long distances for days. That's not instinct. That's skill honed by repetition, memory, and deeply intimate knowledge of the land. You crouch beside the print and try to mimic her movements. You place your palm beside the hoof, measuring. It's not large, a young deer maybe. The direction is east toward the berry thickets. She raises 2 fingers. You follow. There's no rush. A good tracker doesn't sprint. She glides like wind wrapped in skin, and you trail after, stepping only where she steps, ducking when she ducks, learning a new rhythm. You stop. She touches your arm, then points. There ahead, just past the trees, a shadow moves. Your heart jumps. The deer emerges, young, dappled, ears flicking. It browses the underbrush, head down. You freeze, not out of fear, but respect. You're not hunting today. You're understanding. You watch it eat. How it chooses only certain leaves. How its nose twitches constantly, scanning for scent. You watch its stillness. The way, even at rest, its body is poised to run, muscles coiled like springs. Then it bolts. No sound caused it. No predator. Just a whisper of wind, and it vanishes like a ghost. And you smile, because now you know it better. Quirky historical tidbit. Some researchers suggest early humans may have used mimicry, like imitating animal calls or even walking on all fours, to sneak close to prey. Picture a caveman in a deer hide, hood making tiny snuffling sounds. It's equal parts brilliant and hilarious. Later, back at camp, others ask what you saw. You tell them, not with grand words, but in details. The prints, the bite marks, the silence. You draw it in the dirt, sketching the shape of the hoof, the trail, the trees. Someone else listens closely. He'll be the one following that same trail tomorrow. Now it's time for the second half of today's lesson, animal behavior. You sit with a woman who smells like smoke and wet dog. She's the animal whisperer of your camp, the one who always knows when the wolves are near or when the hawks will fly low. She teaches you about signs, not just tracks, but signals. How birds scream louder when snakes are near. How crows follow predators for scraps. How rabbits freeze when they sense danger, and only run when it's almost too late. Historians still argue whether prehistoric people had actual language to describe all these patterns, or if it was more gesture, rhythm, and shared knowing. But the knowledge was there. Deep, layered, unspoken sometimes, but precise. You lie on your stomach beside her, watching a line of ants swarm over a dead beetle. See, she says softly. They take the soft parts first. You watch in fascination as one ant trips over its own leg. Like your brother, she mutters. You both laugh. The afternoon brings you to a cave where others are studying bones. Old ones, a pile of them, some cracked from cooking, some gnawed by other animals. You kneel and poke at a large femur. What do you see? Someone asks. You squint. Something big, heavy, maybe a nod. Why this one, you ask? Because it's near the berry pits, she answers. This was a good place to eat. So things died here, or were brought here, and animals followed. So we follow. It's a chain of understanding. A map of the past, told in scraps of skeletons and the shape of hills. You sit and listen. Learn which bones animals leave behind, which they carry off, which ones break clean, and which splinter like shattered dreams. You never thought you'd care about this much bone, but now you're squinting at a jawbone and guessing its story. Even the dog joins in. He trots over, drops a chewed piece of rib, and stares at you like, this counts as teaching, right? You scratch behind his ears and say, you're tenured now. It's not just about tracking prey. It's about seeing the whole forest as alive and in motion, reading its moods, its size, its warnings. You learn to spot where animals rub against trees, how their fur catches on bark, how they use the same paths again and again. You can almost feel their presence now, even when they're not there. Even the insects have stories. The buzzing cloud near the rotting log, beetles feasting, which means scavengers will be close, which means predators might be watching them. It's a dance, and you've finally been invited. That night, as the fire crackles and the stars unfold like silver dust across the sky, you sit with the trackers. They talk in low tones, not just of the hunt, but of the watchers, the eyes always out there. Wolves, bears, big cats, creatures that know how to follow you. You listen. Because today, you didn't just learn how to track. You learned how to be tracked. And that knowledge, that awareness of your place in the food chain, that's what keeps you alive. The day begins with a chill creeping into your bones, the dawn light barely touching the horizon. You stretch your stiff limbs and smell the damp earth, fresh from last night's mist. Today, the camp's rhythm feels different. It's about water. Water is life, they say, but not just drinking it, understanding it, shaping it, controlling it. You follow a group of elders toward the riverbank, where the flow hums steadily, weaving between mossy stones and whispering promises. The river isn't just a place to slake your thirst or toss your fish traps. It's a lifeline, a route, a danger, and a mystery all rolled into one. You kneel beside the water, dipping your fingers in. It's cold and clean, rushing past like a silver ribbon. You watch as the current carries leaves, twigs, and tiny creatures downstream. You realize that this flow has carried stories for thousands of years, maybe millions, of the mammoths that drank here, the tribes who camped on the banks, the floods that wiped out everything, and the droughts that dried it to dust. Your teacher, a tall woman with braided hair and eyes like deep pools, points out something you never noticed before: the riverbank's layers. Mud, sand, small rocks, shells, each telling a chapter at a time. She scoops a handful of sand and lets it slip slowly between her fingers. Mainstream historical fact: early humans often settled near water sources for good reason. Freshwater access, abundant food like fish and plants, and easy transport routes. Archaeological sites near ancient riverbeds reveal countless artifacts, showing how important these watery veins were for survival and culture. You watch her build a simple dam out of stones and branches, carefully directing the water flow to a shallow pool. This pool traps fish but keeps the rest of the river flowing. Ingenious. She hands you a carved wooden scoop, worn smooth from years of use. You dip it into the pool, feeling the slippery fish dart away. You try to cup water without spilling, but the scoop tips and splashes your arm. You laugh. She smiles, not scolding, just amused. Quirky historical tidbit: some ancient groups used fish poisons made from crushed plants, natural toxins that stun fish without harming the water or other wildlife. Imagine dipping your toes into poison and catching dinner without a spear. Definitely one of those "I didn't see that coming" survival hacks. Later, you gather reeds along the bank, learning to weave them into floating traps and baskets. It's delicate work, requiring patience and a light touch. Your fingers move clumsily, but the woman guides you gently, showing how to bend without breaking, twist with purpose. She talks about how water shapes life, how it can be calm and nurturing or wild and destructive, how the river is a teacher and you have to listen. Historians still argue whether prehistoric people constructed complex water management systems or relied solely on natural flows. But what's clear is that water's central role shaped every part of their daily life, from food gathering to ritual. As afternoon deepens, you learn to read the water's surface, how ripples change with the breeze, how fish create tiny waves when they break for air, how the shadows tell you where deep pools hide. You remember that time in section 15 when you waited patiently for your steaming meal. Patience feels like it's woven into every lesson you learn. By the time the sun dips low, you're building small rafts with children, floating them downstream and laughing as they topple. You feel the slickness of wet wood, the thrill of movement, and the gentle rocking beneath your hands. The camp's evening song rises softly, a lullaby for water, a prayer for rain. You watch the stars blink awake and think about the river's journey, where it came from, where it's going, the lives it touches. Water isn't just something you drink or fish in. It's a story that flows through time, through your hands, through your world. And you are part of that flow. Evening falls like a soft blanket, but the day isn't over yet. You're drawn away from the riverbank toward the sounds of singing. Not the usual campfire chatter, but a rhythm that pulses deep, like a heartbeat calling out to the night. You find yourself surrounded by the community, gathered in a clearing, shadows flickering as flames dance. The night is alive with voices, men, women, and children blending words and sounds into a shared story. Tonight is about music. You sit cross-legged, ears alert, senses open. A woman begins to drum on a hollowed log, steady and slow. Then comes the rattling of dried gourds filled with pebbles and the high, sweet whistle of a bone flute. Mainstream historical fact: archaeologists have found some of the oldest musical instruments in caves dating back over 40,000 years. Flutes made from bird bones and mammoth ivory. Proof that early humans didn't just survive. They celebrated, expressed, and communicated through music. The drumming quickens, the flute soars, and voices join, some chanting in calls, others in response. The sound swells, filling the night air with warmth and connection. You close your eyes, feeling the vibrations in your chest, the rhythm syncing with your breath. It's hypnotic, like a gentle tide, pulling you deeper into the moment. Quirky historical tidbit: some tribes believe music could summon animals or spirits. Imagine banging drums and hoping a deer or a wolf decides to drop by your camp. It sounds wild, but in a world where every sound carried meaning, why not? The songs tell stories of hunts, of seasons, of the moon's journey across the sky. They're lessons wrapped in melody, easy to remember and harder to forget. You notice others clapping and stamping in time, a collective heartbeat that binds everyone. Even a fire seems to flicker in rhythm. Historians still argue whether prehistoric music was primarily ritualistic, recreational, or a practical tool for coordination during hunts. But what's undeniable is its power to bring people together. Someone offers you a simple wooden rattle. You shake it tentatively, then more boldly as the music envelopes you. You laugh as a small child nudges your arm, encouraging you to join the dance. You stand, moving awkwardly at first, then with growing confidence. The firelight warms your face, the night air cools your skin, and the drumbeat carries you forward. Music isn't just noise. It's connection. It's memory. It's survival. As the night deepens, stories weave through the music, echoes of ancestors, warnings, celebrations. You feel the weight of time pressing gently against your skin, and for a moment, you're part of something vast and unbroken. You glance up at the stars, still bright and watchful, and realize that the songs you just heard may have echoed here for thousands of years, carried on the wind, sung by voices long gone but never forgotten. Tonight, you're not just a listener. You're a participant in an ancient chorus that stretches across the millennia. And that's a song worth keeping. The fire's glow dims, and the camp quiets into the gentle hum of night creatures. But your mind is buzzing with the day's lessons, the rhythms, the river, the stories, and the secrets hidden in footprints and bones. Tonight, the elders gather you for one last lesson before sleep, a lesson in rest and dreams. You lie back on a bed of soft leaves, the earth beneath you firm but comforting. Above, the canopy filters the moonlight into delicate patterns, like a living tapestry. They say sleep was just as important as food or fire to your caveman ancestors. Not just for rest, but for survival. When you sleep well, your body heals, your mind sharpens, and your spirit soars. You feel your heartbeat slow, matching the lull of the night. Mainstream historical fact: studies of modern hunter-gatherer societies show that early humans had different sleep patterns than us, often segmented sleep, with periods of wakefulness in between and naps during the day to stay alert and healthy. You close your eyes and feel yourself drifting, but before you fully sleep, the elders share stories of dreams, visions that might carry warnings, guidance, or connection to the spirit world. Quirky historical tidbit: some anthropologists suggest prehistoric humans may have practiced lucid dreaming or used hallucinogenic plants to explore altered states of consciousness. Basically, they were the original dream travelers. As your breathing deepens, you imagine yourself walking through a landscape of shifting shadows and glowing stars. You see animals speaking in silence, rivers flowing backward, and ancient faces smiling. Historians still argue whether prehistoric dreams influenced art and culture or if they were purely personal experiences. But one thing is clear: dreams were woven into the fabric of their lives. You feel a calming warmth spread through your body, a quiet acceptance of the unknown. The night whispers around you, full of secrets and soft sounds. You let yourself sink deeper into the embrace of sleep, knowing you are part of an unbroken chain of dreamers stretching back through time. And tomorrow, you will wake ready to learn more. The first light of dawn seeps slowly into your cave, washing over the rough walls and casting long shadows that stretch and yawn like the people stirring inside. The camp stirs awake with gentle sounds, the soft rustle of animal hides, whispered greetings, the distant call of birds greeting the sun. You breathe in the cool, earthy scent of morning and stretch out, muscles still tender but eager for the day. As you step outside, the world feels fresh and full of possibilities. The sky is a pale canvas, promising warmth but still holding onto the night's chill. Today, as with every day, your life is a blend of routine and surprise, a delicate balance of survival and discovery. You remember the river's song, the beat of drums, the stories told around the fire, and the quiet wisdom of dreams. Each thread weaves into the tapestry of your existence, guiding your steps and shaping who you are. You gather with your tribe, each person moving with purpose, some preparing tools, others setting traps, some sharing smiles and laughter, others lost in thought. Together, you are a living story, a continuation of a journey begun countless generations ago. Historians still debate many details about the daily lives of prehistoric people, the extent of their social structures, the complexity of their language, the ways they understood the world around them. But what remains certain is their resilience, adaptability, and the profound connections they forged with each other in their environment. As the sun climbs higher, you feel the rhythm of life pulse steadily, a heartbeat in sync with the Earth's own. The wilderness is both challenge and home, harsh but generous, unforgiving but full of wonder. You carry with you the lessons of water and fire, music and dreams, hunting and gathering. They are not just survival skills, but expressions of humanity, creative, curious, and endlessly resourceful. Now, as the day begins anew, you feel a deep calm settle over you. The past and present entwine, whispering that every moment is a gift, every breath a miracle. So, you step forward, ready to meet whatever comes with steady hands and an open heart. And with that, you drift gently towards sleep, carried by the soft murmur of the world around you.